G'day team, thanks for joining us here for another episode of the Cavalryman podcast. I'm your host Harley Fox. Today on the show I've got Scott May. Scott is a veteran of the Australian Army, working in Cav 214 for his career, 2 deployments under his belt. We have a bit of a chat about his service life, what it was like leaving and what he's been doing since, such as working at Vic Pol, starting young veterans and now working a YouTube channel called Real Steel Project, which is an awesome channel that we'll dig into all the details of today. Hope you enjoy the podcast. Thanks for being here. Cheers. And just quickly, guys, if you want to help me, help the channel grow, support the Cavalryman podcast and get more eyes on it, just please hit that subscribe button. Simple and easy to do. Really goes a long way. Cheers. Appreciate you. Scott, welcome, mate. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, mate.
No worries. I've had a look at your YouTube page. Quite impressive with the, like I was saying to you the other day, the editing process. I'm well aware of how much effort goes into that, and you've done well, mate.
Yeah, it's actually one of those ones that it came about, just through previous experiences I've had doing things, and when you forget that you've got a skill set that you're actually half good at, and it's sort of interesting how it all come about. But yeah, we're getting there. It's good.
Yeah, nice. How long have you been doing it for?
Well, with Real Steel Rescue, so we set that up proper. That would have been June, July last year. But my sort of using motorsport and automotive pursuits as a way of sort of helping people with mental health and dealing with my own mental health, that's been going on for many, many years, really. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, you've got quite the following. People love that tinkering sort of stuff, hey? They'll sit there and watch it all day, like building furniture or fixing cars or stuff like that.
Yeah, it's such an interesting sort of thing to get into. You get guys, and if you were to sit them around a table like this, take the microphones away and, say, hey, let's talk about what's going on and talk about your feelings and talk about stresses, they'd probably all just clam up and they'd sit there and they'd do this. Oh, yeah, man, I'm all good. But, yeah, like you change the table for an engine bay and pop a bonnet and get them to stick their head under it, and you don't even have to ask them. You'll just be sort of working away, and next minute they'll just start telling you about things, and it's such an interesting space to sort of be involved in. And for me, it's working on cars is something I've always done. Like I've grown up full driving. I've built race cars. I've built, restored cars in my shed sort of thing. And I don't look at what we do on Real Steel Rescue as being sort of like anything, we'll call it educational in the space of like building an engine. What we're doing is bush mechanicking something to get it running, to use it, to do whatever we're doing. But the mental health outlet that creates and that conversation pathway that it can create is what we're actually trying to achieve. And it does it seamlessly. Like it's just so simple. It's amazing how swearing at a rusty old bolt and getting oil on your hands can create that space. Yeah.
Is that you do like a 6-hour sort of session and then you cut it down to an hour or something? And is those sort of conversations something that you broadcast, or is it something you keep between you and the participant?
Yeah, well, it was. I mean, we set it up as a charity from the very onset. So what we're doing with Real Steel Rescue is very much a social experiment as well. So our only source of income at the moment is YouTube. So the way that we look at it is, how many times have you gone to a footy club or an RSL and it's the members selling raffle tickets to the other members to raise money for members to do stuff? It's counterproductive. So our goal was to use YouTube, a multi-million-dollar social media platform, to generate that income. And by going out, filming the content, we take a participant out with us for the day, do whatever it is we're doing. They get a cool little memento at the end of it. Whatever it is that we happen to be doing, going to the racetrack, getting an old banger in a paddock started or something like that. But the conversations in terms of the mental health aspect, that generally is off camera. We don't document any of that. There's no need to. The last thing you want to have is someone that's having a bit of a rough time of it, and next minute you're broadcasting that through the stratosphere sort of thing. And that was an argument we had to have with the Australian Charities and Not-for-Profit Commission, because, they assessed our application and they said, well, we've looked at your social media platforms and nowhere do you really talk about mental health with people. You know, it's kind of like, well, we do, but we don't broadcast that fact.
And put their dirty laundry out there for everybody.
Yeah, exactly right. You know, and that's not going to build trust in you as a person or as an organisation where it's like, you know, hey, Timmy come on last week and then this week's episode is we're broadcasting all his dirty laundry sort of thing. So it was.
Well, I do that.
And we do sort of touch on it in a very indirect, light-hearted way. But the whole idea with Real Steel Rescue is it's like it's cyclical. We create the content, which creates the money, which allows us to take people out to create the content, which then generates the income. And then through that, they get a memento of what they did for the day. And then it just
memento being the video.
Yeah, yep. You know, like our latest project that we've got, which is really cool, is I found an R31 Skyline sitting in a paddock out at Dolby. And the guy that owned it sold it to me for $500. And he's like, mate, I know the car's worth a lot more than $500. You know, the tail lights in this car alone are worth $500.
I saw that video. It was a bit of a beater, all rusty. And
oh, yeah. Yeah, she needs some love. But that car is our community project. So when we get people to come in and work on it, it's going to be random people that are members of Real Steel Rescue. And when I say members, it's they've emailed us and said, hey, I want to do stuff with you. They're members for insurance reasons. But yeah, basically the whole idea is that we're going to get someone come along and get it started. Then the next person comes along, we're going to strip it. Then the next person comes along. And at the end of it, we're going to give that away to a subscriber. So it's essentially a car restoration project that is driven by the subscriber base. And at the end of the day, you know, we make the money from generating the content, which helps us with other projects. And we're going to give that car away because all we're going to invest into it is our time and, you know, some materials and things like that. Nothing, it's not going to be $100,000 restoration. It's going to be a car that you can drive and enjoy. And yeah,
that's awesome. So how many episodes would that be to go from where to go?
Oh, mate, that's a long-term project, that one. Who knows? It could take, 6 months, 12 months. We're very much, and this is the other part of it, is that the challenge that we've set ourselves is we started this with zero budget. You know, I sold a couple of guns and we bought a camera and some microphones. So we've got the production quality there in terms of, it's good to look at and you can hear what they're saying.
Yeah.
But other than that, we're essentially whatever money we make through the platforms goes back into the organisation. So if it takes us 12 months to get that car restored, it takes 12 months. If we get a windfall and even that, we've already had people reach out that have got workshops and hoists and panel beaters and they're like, dude, love the concept, what you're doing, want to get involved. You can use my workshop. I'm a panel beater by trade. I'll do the rust repairs. Even just this morning, I had a guy email me. He does the laser rust removal. Right. He's like, I'll come and laser the car for you for nicks because I think what you're doing's got a good bit of value to it.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah,
that's awesome. That's the video I watched was the production quality and everything is awesome, and you've nailed it even with your limited budget and equipment. It looks good. Like you said, it's like with me, we're having all this sort of stuff. If it's not easy to look at and good quality, people will just switch it off, even if it is for a good cause. If it's hard to watch, no one's going to watch it.
Yeah, and that's I went down a rabbit hole. If you said to me, where do you see yourself at 42? I'm going to have a YouTube channel and exactly.
I'm going to be a content creator.
Yeah, exactly right. But it's one of those ones. Once you sort of get past the cringe factor of it, and you lean into what you're doing, you can actually sort of do a lot of good with it. And one thing that I noticed, and this is what led me to starting to Real Steel Rescue, is doing stuff with veterans in the past around motorsport and that sort of thing, that there was a value, 100% value to it. But what we were doing in the veteran space was limited to veterans. And there are so many people out there that could benefit from it. So Real Steel Rescue is set up to be sort of non-denominational and insensitive. You don't have to be a copper or, a veteran. You could just be a person that wants to get involved in some capacity. And, we want to, down the track, our goal ultimately is to have a workshop in Toowoomba, like a men's shed, but for cars, get that 19-year-old kid that wants to sort of put suspension in his new car and teach him how to do it safely. And because I was 19, I was feeling that out for myself. I didn't have the benefit of Google back in the day. I was getting blocks of wood and high lift jacks. And if I was to go back to when I was working on cars as an 18-year-old, you'd be like, what are you doing, dude? Like, surprised I've got all my fingers, to be honest.
What was childhood like? Were you living on a farm or something growing up? Or
No,
how'd you get into that?
I had a really standard upbringing, outer suburbs of Melbourne. Dad was a chippy. Mum was a stay-at-home mum, did the books for Dad.
Right.
Run around during the day getting the nails and the screws and dropping him off. I remember driving out to job sites with Mum when I was a young bloke to drop nails off to Dad, sort of thing.
So it was doing stuff with your hands.
Yeah, well, I think most of it was I grew up in a family of 4 boys, so I'm the third of 4. And I remember, you go back to, would have been 1989. Dad had the option of buying a Toyota Tarago or a Nissan Patrol, and he bought a Nissan Patrol. And that is kind of what led us into what I did as an adult. As a young bloke, I have travelled through Victoria probably 15, 20 times over. Regularly would get pulled out of school for 6 to 2 months or 6 weeks to sort of 8 weeks to go across the Simpson Desert or go to Cape York or, so I got pulled out of high school to spend 2 months going across the Simpson Desert. And we did it again the following year because it rained and all the wildflowers were in bloom.
All 6 of you in the patrol?
Yeah, yep. We had a couple of swags on the roof, a 40-litre Engel in the back, and off we go. And that was the real foundation for ultimately what led me to joining the Army. Just grew up out and about, always around cars, always in the bush, always breaking things in the bush, getting bogged in the bush,
So your dad was pretty handy and taught you a bunch of stuff with fixing the cars on the road sort of thing?
No, that was useless. If it wasn't made out of wood, don't ask. Dad was a very hands-on parent, but in terms of the mechanical aspects of it, modifying cars, building cars, I did my plumbing apprenticeship, learned how to weld, 2 older brothers. We just sort of figured it out amongst ourselves.
Yeah,
and then, in the four-wheel driving community, you talk to people and, stuff like that. I remember my second oldest brother, Jason, he had an MQ Patrol, which he bought off my older brother, so a mid-'80s model. And the engine blew up on that, and he literally went and bought an engine rebuild kit and a Gregory's manual and rebuilt the engine in Dad's garage, figuring it out as he went.
Wow.
And that's how we did it, particularly me and Jason, because we were 2 years apart. So we were always going out and just getting into mischief in the bush, and, we'd roll in at midnight, 1 a.m, just going out for a day drive, and your girlfriends or wives be like, well, you said you were going to be back at 4, and it's like, well, we did, but then, we went down this one track and a car fell over and then things blew up, and yeah.
So you never stopped tinkering throughout your life?
No, mate, I pretty much all through my formative years played with 4-wheel drives. When I got my license, my first car of all things was a Ford Telstar.
Right.
I had that for probably 2 weeks, and it did the head gasket. So, went out and pulled the head off, and Dad gave us a hand, but still figuring it out as we went, sort of thing.
Right.
Yeah, even like when I joined the Army, as much as I was Armoured Corps, on deployment, I would just go out and, when there was downtime, fix things. It's just something that, you see a string, you start pulling at it, and yeah.
Just that way inclined.
Yeah, yep. I mean, and it's for me, it's always been a bit of an outlet, but also if it makes people's lives a bit easier by being able to fix something, then, a perfect example is the air conditioning in Baghdad. Kept crapping out, and given that I was a plumber and I was an air conditioning, mechanical plumber, so I did air conditioning. I spent a couple of days getting all the air cons fixed, and, it's just something I've always done. you know.
Sorry to interrupt, but when you're operating on the edge, whether it's outfield or behind the mic, focus isn't a luxury, it's a requirement. That's why we're fueled by Sleepy Reaper coffee. This isn't your average supermarket blend. Sleepy Reaper is small batch roasted for those who appreciate a bold, smooth profile without the bitter aftertaste. It's high altitude energy designed to keep you sharp when the days get long. From their signature dark roast to their heavy hitting espresso blends, they've mastered the art of the wake up call. It's the official fuel of the Grey Man podcast, and it's how I stay locked in for every episode. Head over to sleepyreaper.com.au and use the code GREYMAN, GREYMAN, at checkout to grab a bag. Stay sharp, stay caffeinated. Now back to the show. Yeah, nice. I am the complete opposite. I will drive my car to the mechanic.
Yeah, drop it
and
off.
get a loan car while I'm away, and then pick it up.
Yeah,
that's about it.
Yeah, I've always, I mean, I'd say not always, but in recent years, it's one of those ones where it's like, what's the worst you can do? Break it more.
Yeah,
you know,
that's
and
exactly
don't get me wrong, there's been times when I've pulled things apart and I have broken it more, and you're like, oh well, bin. That's a learning, a learning curve there. I'll know for next time.
Yeah.
You go and buy a new one, put it on, and off you go.
I find with I used to ride motorbikes most of my life, and I find the motorbike community is very much like mechanically minded. Because if you have a motorbike, someone's like, oh, what's the fucking, I don't even know any terms. I'm so mechanically retarded, but what sort of head gasket you got on that? And I was like, mate, fucking, I don't know. I ride it. Like, I know how to twist the throttle, I know how to fill it up, and I know how to take it to the mechanic if I need anything.
Yeah, with Real Steel Rescue a while back, we got given a little Suzuki Swift, and I've been doing some racing since I got up here with motor events racing, and that's basically budget endurance motorsport. So the whole concept is your car's not allowed to be worth more than $5,000 Red Book value.
Oh, yeah.
And then you'll go to, Morgan Park Raceway or Queensland Raceway. They've got them all up and down the East Coast. And it's like a 24-hour endurance race. And nobody wins. At the end of the day, they literally auction off first place because they actually raise money for Rare Cancer Australia. But anyway, we got this Suzuki Swift and sort of like, cool, what are we going to do with it? And had a bit of a chat with the guys that run motor events and said, why don't we take 4 random subscribers and build this race car over a weekend and then race it at Morgan Park? Anyway, so 4 people that we chose came to my house and we turned this Suzuki Swift from a little, sewing machine into a sewing machine with a roll cage. But when we did it, the whole idea was to do it to a budget. And it was interesting. We were doing things on this car that were so simple that I've never really put much thought into it. It's just that's what you do when you're trying to get a bit of a cheap performance enhancement. And people through the social media platforms were commenting like, oh, wow, that's a great idea. Where'd you learn that? I'm like, just some old dude showed it to me years ago. A perfect example is heat is obviously a big thing in motorsport. You want to get rid of as much heat as you can. And everyone goes out and they buy these vents and scoops and all this sort of garbage. And all we did was get a couple of washers and some longer bolts from the spare nuts and bolts tub that we had and undid the hinge bonnet, the bonnet hinge, put the washers in there to space it up so that the bonnet becomes a big reverse scoop. And that was something that was shown to me by this old dude years and years ago, like early 90s when I first got my four-wheel drive. And he said to me, he goes, mate, all you do, space the back of the bonnet up, and if you don't believe me, get a bit of string and tie the string or tape it to your bonnet, and you'll see that the air flows over the bonnet, and it'll actually, well, if the string's in the engine bay, it'll suck the string out of the engine bay because it creates a vacuum and it sucks all the hot air out. And I've done that to all of my cars ever since. Like if the heat's an issue, I'll just make the bonnet stick up a bit. And that was something that in the 60s and 70s was like common practice.
Oh, yeah.
And now all of a sudden we fast forward to 2025 and you've got to go to eBay and buy the biggest scoop you can. And you know what I mean? Like I think there's a lot of knowledge that's been lost.
Yeah, for sure.
Just from that sort of stuff. And that's the sort of stuff that I find really interesting is that, let's use the paper bag argument. We go back to the 50s, you go to the shop and we have paper bags. Then we had plastic during the 90s, and now all of a sudden Woolworths are telling me that, these paper bags, they're a new thing. People forget.
You're going back to it.
Yeah. It's
Everything comes back around.
Yeah, yep, exactly.
We'll have yo-yos and marbles back soon, surely.
Yeah, hopefully.
You said before that they auction off first place. What does that mean?
Literally, they auction it off. So you do your.
Does anybody cross the finish line first, or?
Yeah, well, no, sort of, yeah. So, so basically, there's 3 classes. So you got 1, 2, and 3, and it all comes down to the factory power of your car. So 85 kilowatts and below is what the Suzuki Swift is. So that's in ME3, and then the more power, the higher up in the class you go. So there are class winners. And the trophies are literally bits of old engine parts they weld together and go, here you go, mate, there's your trophy, you come first. But then when they announce overall first place winner, they literally start an auction. And you buy the win. So you could have bombed out in lap 20. And but if you bid $500 for the first place trophy, then you're the winner. You come first. But it's genuine
concept.
Yeah, but it's enjoyable motorsport. It's no one's racing for sheep stations. There's certain rules around modifying your car. So when we were racing with the RSL, which is how I got into the motorsport, the budget endurance stuff, we had an old Ford Laser that we got, and the engine in it died. So we got an engine out of a Mazda MX-5, which was a slightly bigger engine, which should have put us up into the next category because of the power and blah, blah, blah. And when we did the scrutineering, they popped the bonnet, and we literally just got a label maker and wrote not a performance-enhancing modification and stuck that sticker on the rocker cover, and they're like, yep, no worries, cool. Like, no one cares. If you're building a car and you're hanging out with mates and you're out on the track and you're racing it, so long as you're not being a dickhead on the track, nobody cares. Yep.
Nice. So you said that was what led you to the army before. What was that? And being outdoorsy?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's kind of interesting because I did an interview with ABC Radio a few years ago now, around Anzac Day when I was the president of the Toowoomba RSL. Oh. And she asked me this. She goes, what was your motivation for joining the army? And she was expecting some kind of like, patriotic response. Yeah. Oh, I signed a check above me, all that sort of garbage. And I literally turned around without even, missing a beat. And I was like, well, I like four-wheel driving and camping, and it seemed to make sense to do it as a job. And that's literally what led me to the army.
Gotcha.
I done my plumbing apprenticeship. I was working in high-rise construction in Melbourne, kind of bored. Literally a couple of blocks down was the recruiting office on Russell Street. So I went in there one day, looked up a few bits and bobs, saw Armoured Corps, like sick, replaced the wheels for tracks. And then I saw a picture of an ASLAV, did a bit of research on ASLAVs, like that's me. Joined the army, went down a couple of weeks later, did my testing. They offered if I wanted to go officer entry. I'm like, no, I want to play with the big four-wheel drive thing. And that's how I ended up in the army, yeah.
Yeah, right. How old were you at that stage?
20, I think, 21.
All right.
Yeah, I was a bit older.
Straight out of school.
Yeah, yep. So I finished my apprenticeship. Yeah, it would have been 21. Yeah, because I had my 21st at Pucker.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
A little bit older than the average recruit, but still pretty young.
Yeah, so I didn't fall for the whole, you need to go down the Q store and get a long wait and all that sort of garbage. Yeah.
A little bit of wits about you.
Yeah.
When you say Armoured Corps, you're tanky or Cav?
Cav, yeah. Yep. So, and even the reason I chose Cav, I didn't go into it with looking at the vehicles and I want to drive that. And it was like, that's a big four-wheel drive. I just want to do that. I just want to drive that. That was it. I had no peripheral vision of, 2005 was when I joined, I think. So the global war on terror was a thing. All these terrorists, none of that was a motivator. None of that was even on my radar. It was like, I want to go four-wheel driving and I want to do that. And that's I get paid to do that, You
didn't think about getting deployed?
Nah, not in the slightest. It was just, that's what I want to do. Did
you find it all pretty easy then, being so outdoorsy.
Yeah. Kapuka was a piece of piss. Like, I didn't struggle in any capacity. Having grown up in I wouldn't say it was like a authoritative parenting style, but there was discipline in our house. So
you got to have fucking discipline with 4 boys.
yeah, exactly right. Yeah, it's, so living at Kapuka, being told when to get up, when to go to bed, when to eat, how to make your bed, that was nothing new. And being a tradesperson too, and understanding how to work. You get your brass at the start of Kapuka, and you're supposed to sand it. And at the end of when you march out, your brass is supposed to be polished. So having been a plumber and worked with copper and brass a lot, that was because we did heavy industrial stuff. I remember we got given all our keepers and the buckles and that sort of jazz and the emery paper and the recruit instructors. Oh, you need to sit there when you got downtime and polish this and mirror polish. No dramas. And literally that afternoon went back to the lines. It's nearly bedtime, bit of free time sort of thing. So I pulled the pedestal fan apart, wrapped a polishing rag around the shaft, polished all my brass within about 10 minutes, except for one piece. I half polished it, and then I would just keep that one piece in my pocket. And when the recruit instructors are like, "You need to go polish your brass in between serials at the range," yeah, no drama. So you just sit there pretending to, and everyone else is like, "How come you're never doing any? You've always got that one bit." And I'm like, "Because the rest of it's done. Had it done on day 2, Yeah, I didn't find Kapuka at all challenging.
Did you grey man it?
Yeah. Well, I was thinking about the name of your podcast, and I was one of those people, and I don't mean to sort of toot my own trumpet, but I knew I could do my job. I knew I was good at my job, and because of that, I could fuck with people, and I could get away with it. The looking back at some of the shit stirring and the practical jokes that I played, there are other people that'd be like, you get charged for doing that sort of stuff, or at least get a bit of a bee sting. But and I already sort of, like, even at Kapuka, you'd be down the end of your room, and the recruiting instructors would say, "Go to your room, get your pen and paper, and be back here in 10 seconds," or whatever it is, and everyone would rush off. And I sat there one day and super glued a dude's pens into his drawer. Just shit like that. And I remember.
Where'd you get the super glue from? Afghans?
I don't know. I found it somewhere, but it's just stuff. I found a dude's pajamas and sewed the end of his pajamas, the sleeves shut. So as you know, so everyone go get your jammies on. And I remember Joel Barberi, his name was. He's standing in the hall, with these gimp arms, with his fingers and the RI's walking down. He's just, "What the fuck is wrong with you?" And he's like, "Someone sewed my jammies." And he kind of laughed at it and walked off. But that was me. My whole military career was just, I knew I was good at my job. I could sort of do some things and, get away with them. I was a bit older as well, and yeah.
Yeah, nice.
No.
So where was your first posting?
Second 14 in Brisbane, actually.
Oh,
so,
nice.
yeah, I was posted to Enoggera Barracks there.
It's a good one. Is that your first preference?
No.
You're from Melbourne, aren't you?
Yeah, my first preference was 2Cav, and retrospectively looking back on it, I'm glad I sort of went to 214. And that was probably because in Armoured Corps, 2Cav was the premier regiment and all this sort of jazz.
In Adelaide?
Darwin. They were at Darwin at the time.
Oh, yeah.
And a couple of my good mates, they got posted to 2Cav, and I was a bit annoyed at that. But then retrospectively talking after the fact, a couple of years later, I think 2Cav was it wouldn't have fitted me, given that I'm not this gung-ho war dog kind of, I was in the army and I was good at my job and I could do my job, but at the same time, I wanted to switch off from it and walk away from it at the end of the day and, decompress. Yeah, I wasn't, and I don't think I ever was green. I was, like I said, in the army because I got to drive 4 drives. And then consequently, aside off, I got to shoot big guns too.
You think Brisbane's better for that because you got the city so you can go and detach and live your life, whereas Darwin, it's kind of more...
No, I don't mean it in a geographical sense. It's more so just the the personality of the regiment, I
culture
suppose.
of
The
it.
culture, yeah. Where, 2 Cav were very much the war dogs kind of thing, whereas 214 was it was just interesting. It was I remember this one day. So at 214, you had the regimental headquarters, the ring road that goes around the barracks. And then across the road from that was the A squadron building, the B squadron building. And I was in C squadron, which had just been re-raised. And they were literally shoved up the back near the Q store in this old abandoned building that they actually said's no longer unsafe to use.
Black mold and stuff.
Yeah. And like the personalities of the 3 different squadrons very much shone through. So A squadron was very much the kind of the warry, the young fit blokes. B squadron was kind of like the more tactical, kind of educated, and then C squadron, like our mascot was a rat. Like that was, and that goes back to the First World War. But I remember this one particular day walking down between the A and B squadron buildings and just stopping and just looking at the bespectacle that was, in front of me. And I could just picture like, imagine the CEO with his coffee cup sitting up, looking out over the apron at all the different squadrons. And he's like, oh, A squadron, look at them. They're doing PT. It was like 2:00 in the afternoon and they're doing a PT session. A squadron, they're my boys. They're the young, fit lads. They're the warfighter. Good job, A squadron. And then looking across, and B squadron were doing like a weapons lesson. So they had all the weapons and tactics stuff. So they're doing TOETs and B squadron, or keeping up, educating the power of the brain, and that's my B squadron. Like they're the smart ones. And then up the back, the other side of the apron, was C squadron, and they were trying to put up a tent. So just one of those big 12 by 12 green things, and the SSM standing there, and he's like, everyone grab a pole. So boys are like getting the poles and using them as trumpets and sword fighting with them, and dudes are like, I have got a pole. And it was like, and then, the CEO would be standing there with his coffee cup and he's like, whoa, C squadron. And like, and it was like, but that squadron at the same time, every time we did sort of any kind of squadron comp, we'd win.
Yeah, well.
Like we were, sitting there with your chicken Kiev ball with the cheese running down your uniform kind of thing, but could drive a lav and could shoot a gun sort of thing. And I think that kind of environment suited me. It was
take it too seriously.
Yeah, we didn't. Yeah, we took it seriously when we needed to, but when we didn't, it was just stupid
Shenanigans.
Yeah, and it was fun, and we were like I remember there one day walking through the mess, and I don't know why I did this. We were walking through the Cherry Street mess, and one of the corporals, Paddy, he's sitting there with Jake and Ruben, and they were 2 digs. I did IETs with both of them, but they were 18-year-olds, so very young. And I just happened to be walking along. I stopped. Oh, hey, Paddy, did the boss talk to you about those non-techs? And Paddy just, without missing a beat, oh no, what was it? I said, the ferret and the gun, the Bren gun carrier that are on the plinths outside RHQ. We've been asked to non-tech them because the CO wants to ride in them as they do his farewell parade at the end of the year. So they're going to have a convoy of armoured vehicles, and the CO wants to be in the Bren gun carrier up the front. And I just spun this bullshit story. And Paddy's like, yeah, right. Oh, what are you guys doing after lunch? You can non-tech the Bren gun and the ferret. And they happened to get moved from the plinths and put into the hangars because they were doing renos. And this is just coincidental. And it was like a week later.
These are the non-functional ones that are displays out there.
Yeah. And a week later, I'm sort of just walking through the hangars, and there's Ruben and Jake with this paperclip and, clipboard and notepad and pen, and standing in front of these Bren gun and this ferret. I'm like, what are you 2 doing? And they're like, oh, we've got to... Jake turns and goes, we've got to non-tech these things. He's like, I don't even know how to non-tech a lav properly, let alone whatever these are. And this just rumour thing grew and grew and grew to the point where non-tech forms were made up for them. They had to go to the armoury and non-tech a Bren gun because, well, a Bren gun carrier needs a Bren gun. And it got to the point where it went through the workshops and the squadron, and poor old Jake and Ruben had to go and give all the non-tech forms to the XO. So they've walked up to regimental headquarters. Excuse me, sir, we've got these non-tech forms to give you. And he's apparently was the only one that wasn't in on this joke. And he's like lost his shit at them. Like, what are you doing, wasting my time? And they very sheepishly come back down and like, oh, he didn't know what to do with them. And they still didn't get the stitch up. You know, but and that was through my entire career, that was me. You know, like none of that ever come back on me. You know, just doing just shit like that, just sort of staying under the radar. You know, there's
been a fucking minute.
Oh yeah, I mean there was things like I remember one day in the hangars there, two march-ins were ground guiding a lav onto one of the 20-ton trailers. And everyone was off doing PT. I think they were going for a run down South Bank. And I had an appointment or something that day. So I didn't go. And I just heard this almighty bang. And I turn around and there's this lav half hanging off this 20-ton trailer. And a lav is actually too wide for a 20-ton. So both wheels left and right will hang off the side of the 20-ton a little bit. So you've got to be pretty on point.
Oh, yeah.
And anyway, I was just going, shit, like this is bad. There's a lav half hanging off a 20-ton trailer that the truckies are coming to pick up at the end of the day. Like,
how much do lavs weigh? Roughly
12, 13 ton.
Fuck.
Yeah. And you couldn't drive it. And there was a guy with a little Favco crane thing down in the truckies yard, just a civilian contract. He was moving shipping containers around. So I ran down there and I was like, hey, mate, I said, what's the maximum lifting capacity on this thing? And he's like, 15 tons. And I was like, you reckon it could lift one of those tank looking things up there? And he's like, probably. Why? I said, because one of them's just fallen off a trailer and we just need to pop him back on. And he goes, oh, yeah? I said, how much is it going to cost you to do it? And this driver looks at me and goes, 4 slabs of Jim Beam premix. So I'm like, deal. So I walk back up to these 2 march-ins. I'm like, you two go down to Dan Murphy's right now and get 4 slabs of Jim Beam premix cans. And they're like, oh, that's going to be like $300. I said, mate, $300 or you're going to get charged. One of the two. And this dude drives up with the crane and I'm like, yep, they're going now to get your beer or your Jimmies. And he literally hooked it up, put this thing back on, bugged out as quick as he could because I said, you got to get out of here, man, because if they come back from PT, you know.
Yeah.
And, these these march-ins come back with their 4 slabs, dropped him off, no harm, no foul. No one knows that happened. They do
now.
Yeah.
So where were you when you got your trip?
I was
still a C Squadron.
Yep. So I was at 214 the whole time.
How long were you in for?
I was only there for 4 years, but
Yeah.
I was fucked at the end of it. You know. So the way my military career went, I didn't realise it until a couple of weeks back. But one of my mates, Jeff, he was in for 7 years, I think, and we were talking about this same sort of stuff. And he just turns around and he goes, fuck me. He goes, geez, you had a blessed career, didn't you? And I never really stopped to think about it. So I basically got posted to 214. I never drove in a line troop. So I was attached to Ramey for the first bit. So I was an Armoured Corps driver for Ramey. So for those that you don't know, when you're driving a line troop, it's not like your recruiting poster thing where it's like you're crashing through the bush. It's very much driver, prepare to advance, driver turn left, driver stop. It's boring as shit. Whereas driving for Ramey, like anything with Ramey, it's pretty loose. So
Was that like the recovery vehicle sort of thing?
Yeah, so I was driving the fitters track, or the recovery track, sorry. So yeah, like my first Bush X was with a recovery mechanic who fell asleep as a crew commander driving to Gin. So like here's me just cruising down the highway, just chatting away to myself on the intercom and Gino's in the back having a kip kind of thing. But like in the tactical sense outfield, when the recovery track gets reacted, you kind of just go to it, you recover the car, you know. And it was 60 k's an hour driving through the bush. The crew is like, get me there now. So, you know, I really enjoyed that. And they appreciated the fact that I could actually drive, given that I'd grown up full driving. So I saw for the first 8-10 months of my career was attached to Ramey all the time. So every time I was outfield, it was non-tac. It was pretty cushy. But yeah, then basically the manning came out for RTF2, which was 2007, and I missed out. And it was literally, they came out, they read out the manning, and alphabetically May was after the amount of people they need, the letter M. So they just alphabetically pick drivers.
Yeah.
Right. So all the dudes are on the RTF2 trip. They're like, what's going on, Maisie? How come you thinking, what, did you piss someone off? And I'm like, I don't know, probably, who knows. So I ended up, as a bit of a consolation, which looking back on it now was really cool consolation, I got to go to Indy to do the recruiting stand for Indy.
Okay.
So we spent 10 days, I think it was 10 days or a week down the Gold Coast. And well, when we got down there, they didn't give us a White Fleet vehicle. So our troop leader rang up and he's like, what's going on? We don't have a White Fleet car. And they're like, oh, just use the labs. So we were cruising around Indy in ASLabs getting pizzas and shit like that. Like, it was a fun couple of days. Like we'd get there in the morning, you'd set up the stand, and you've got 2 ASLabs there, and then the infantry have got a stire and a pack, and the artillery have got a big gun. So everyone's just flocking to the labs, and you were kind of like a grid girl, but for
Yeah.
We got to do hot laps around the Indy circuit. So the first day we were there. Well, when we got there, they were told that on Friday we're going to do a demo lap with the Army vehicles. And we were there for 5 days, I think it was. But the first day we were there, they're like, oh, no, you're doing this every day. So I'm like, oh, yeah, cool. So we got out on the track in between races, and we had the 2 ASLabs and a Land Rover, a Bushmaster, and then the burnout, the Army Geddon, that burnout Land Rover they had at the time.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was there. And we had this safety brief from the race officials, and they're like, okay, the Land Rover is going to be the, set the pace, the order of march, and blah, blah, blah. And, you're not allowed to do more than 30 Ks an hour, and it's a smile and wave little tour. And we were like, yeah, no drama. So we get out on the track, and the race officials are on our radio channel, and they've given us, yep, okay, off you go. And then as soon as we've given the thumbs up, my boss, Lieutenant Javot, just gets on the intercom. He's like, Maisie, punch it. So we were racing the 2 labs around the Indy circuit. And the race officials on the radio, oh, the 2 tank things, slow down. And the boss is like, oh, I can't hear you, broken comms, like flicking his bloody transmit switch on and off. And
how far? What's the top speed on them?
They get up to 110.
Oh, yeah.
Like, we were hooking it. Like it was fun. We were only supposed to do 1 lap. We ended up doing 4. And there was this really cool photo that come out in the paper the next day. Because when we come down pit straight, like I hit the picks, and then the other car we leapfrogged one another, and had the guns going, all this sort of jazz. And the picture was on the back page, was taken from up on like the stands, and it was a bunch of dudes with like a beer in their hand, like big fist pumps, looking down, like, yeah, fuck yeah, like. And then the lav is down on the track. There's smoke coming off the tires, like it was cool. And and the headline was like Army wows Indies, or Army steals the show at Indy, and this was the first time Army had been back since the old show us your tits sign out the helicopter. And we were told, we were briefed, no controversy. So anyway, this thing come out, and like Brigade got massive kudos for it, and they're like, fuck yeah, this is awesome. And
recruitment went up a notch.
Oh, well, the sad part is the next day, one of the sergeants came down from 214, and he basically said that we couldn't be trusted to drive around the circuit, so he had to do it. So me and one bloke had Thursday, and then Friday was supposed to be another 2 guys, but they got kicked out, and this sergeant jumped in, and off they went, and they're like, just do what you did yesterday. That was cool. The crowd loved it. And first lap around, I'm standing next to the race marshal, and he gets on his radio, and he sort of hand over the mic, and he's like, oh, one of your vehicles has just hit the wall. And I was like, what do you mean one of your vehicles? Like the burnout car, because that thing was doing burnouts. And I was like, the burnout car? And he goes, no, I want one of your ones, one of the tanks. And I was just like, fuck. And anyway, they cut the demo there, and they brought the 2 lavs in, and the boss gets out of the turret, and I was like, sort of bailed him up. I'm like, what happened, boss? He goes, oh, we were going down pit straight, and we went to do what we did yesterday, hit the brakes, and there was like a patch of oil on the left-hand side of and the left road wheels all hit the oil and made the car pivot turn, and we hit the wall. at 90 degrees. So they literally did a 90-degree turn on pitch straight and then drilled the bloody concrete wall. And I kind of looked at the boss and I was like, what actually happened, boss? And he goes, anyway, Sergeant such and such was driving and he was going down pitch straight trying to show off, trying to fishtail it. Oh, yeah. And the front steerers, the tyres rolled on the wheels and the steering wheel ripped out of his hand and we T-boned the wall. And they had to close down the track until engineers came and everything was delayed by a couple of hours, and the brigade commander's granddaughter was in the turret for a joyride, and it was just and then the next day in the paper was basically the same deal, front, back page, picture of an ASLAV, moment of impact, the concrete dust, and essentially the headline was Army fucks up. And they banned us from doing any more. and like for the rest of the week, people coming up, are you the bloke that was driving is this the one that you can see where you painted over it in black? And it went from being a really cool recruiting thing to like
Army's retarded.
Yeah. I mean, but it was still fun. Like where we were was in between these two high-rise buildings, and there was his apartment full of girls on one side and behind us was an apartment full of blokes, and all week they were shouting at one another and flirting, and the boys like, hey, girls, show us your tits, and, And this one night we were stuck in the middle of the track because they had a night race on, and the girls were out in the balcony and they're like, well, we'll show you our tits, boys, So we turned all the thermal on. And there's video of this kicking around somewhere. One of the boys filmed it, and I was behind the sight, and literally you hear Danny on the turret. He's like, gives us a target indication. There's like 3rd window in, 4 windows down. I'm like, yeah, on, mate. And these boys are egging these girls on to get their tits out, and we've got the 3 of them in the thermal on the balcony in their bikinis, and as soon as they pull their tops up, we hit them with a searchlight and just lit up the side of the building. And the girls all just sort of froze and screamed, and then you just hear from behind us this moment of probably 5 seconds of silence. You just hear these 4 or 5 young blokes like, fuck yeah, boys, say it, fuck yeah. And then about 15 minutes later, this dude rocks up with a slab of beer. And he comes in and goes, which one of you guys turned on the searchlight? Oh, yeah, that was us. He goes, yeah, mate, we had a bet that we couldn't do it. Thanks, boys. It was still fun. It was good. But
Finley's still going. They switched it out for...
they only do the supercars now. They don't do the Indy cars.
Yeah.
So same track, but they don't do...
Same sort of event?
Yeah. I
wonder if the girls are still getting their tits out.
Probably. But I mean, probably one of my fondest memories from defence was one night we were on our way home, and the boss was like, let's get some pizzas for dinner. Can't be bothered cooking, whatever. We'll just get some pizzas. And so we drove into this, the corner store with the laundromat and the bottle shop and the fish and chip shop. It was like one of them.
Thing,
yeah. And we pulled down this side street, and the big sign said no vehicles over 10 tonne or 200, whatever it was. So it's like, well, we can't park here. So I was ground guiding one of the labs into the car park of this little corner strip mall thing. And I've come around the corner, and there's this dad and kid. And they were getting out of their car, going to get dinner or whatever. And this little kid, he would have been maybe 10, I don't know. And he's like, whoa, Dad, check it out. There's an army guy. Because I had the cams on with the slouch hat, and I was like, oh, hey, just wait here. There's something cool's coming around the corner. And then the lav sort of out of the darkness rolls around the corner, and this little kid was just like, whoa. And we parked them up next to one another, 2 labs, and I said to this little bloke, like, you want to get up and have a look? So this little kid, we lifted him up, and he's in the driver's seat. We turned the turret on, and he's got the gun going, and and I'm standing next to Dad, and Dad's like, oh, so what fuel economy has this thing got? And what pressure do you run? Asking all that sort of boring shit. And I was sort of sitting there answering his questions like, mate, seriously, you don't really care about the fuel economy, do you? And he's like, oh, it's interesting. I was like, do you want to get in the other one? And he's like, oh, can I? And this dad and this kid literally got to have their own little make-believe war with 2 real labs, And it was just cool. It was just one of those genuine human moments that you can't fabricate.
They're probably still talking about it.
Oh, and even that, we went in, we ordered the pizzas, and 15, 20 minutes later goes by, and this girl comes out with a stack of pizzas, and she's like, oh, did one of your guys order these? And I said, well, yeah, probably. It was a dude in uniform. And she's giving me the pizzas, and she's standing there looking at these labs, and I was like, do you want to get up and have a look? Oh, my boss will yell at me. I said, don't worry, I'll sort your boss out. So this girl gets up and she's in the turret sort of thing, and then the boss comes out looking for a bit of blood and sees the lavs and he's like, can I get in? Yeah, mate, go in. And then the guy from the bottle shop literally stopped serving customers and they all came out, and it was just a genuine, wholesome kind of, there was no, pretending to be warriors and this sort. It was just like, cool, this is a moment that you can have a look at something that you're never going to see again unless you join the army. Yeah, and we were there for like an hour.
Yeah, nice.
It was cool. It but that was genuinely a fun week.
Yeah.
And then so from that I pretty much got put on a gunnery course. Sent down to Pucker again to do my gunners course, and ended up finishing my gunners course and got thrown on Sectet 11. Yeah, not as a gunner. I literally was rocked back into work, and they turn around. They're like, this person's not going anymore. You need to go. And I did 0 lead-up training with Sectet. I literally rolled into Kuwait with no equipment, just wearing my green uniform, got issued all my kit in Kuwait and just literally thrown in the deep end.
Yeah, right.
It's like, what's my job again? What am I doing?
Well, what are you doing over there?
So I was an operator. So essentially, Sectet was a bit of a different sort of, it was a non-conventional operation in that, so a normal cavalry troop is 4 gun cars and 2 personnel carriers, whereas Sectet, because it was more of an uplift kind of function, so escorting VIPs around and the ambassador, it was 4 personnel carriers and 2 gun cars. So as an operator, your job was to stand up in the hatch on the right-hand side of the LAV, because that's the blind side of the vehicle for the crew commander. So I pretty much was waist up out of the hatch with a minimi, just scanning for threats, sort of like ground guiding the right-hand side of the vehicle if I needed to. Yeah. Briefing any VIPs that were travelling with us at the time. I got told off at one stage because I think it was Brendan Nelson. He was the Minister for Defence at the time, and our Treasurer. Can't remember. No, he was some politician came up, and they didn't like that when I gave my brief. I said, what did I say? If something should happen, exit the vehicle through the rear crew hatch or the hole in the side of the hull where the vehicle used to be. And they didn't like it. Apparently that wasn't very confidence inspiring.
Whatever holes you can find.
Yeah, but even that, like retrospectively, I sort of looked at that job. I know I could do the job, but I didn't realise the gravity of what I was doing in the terms of, a 21-year-old digger was telling the Minister for Defence and our Treasurer or whoever they were, hey, whilst you're in this vehicle, look at me, I am the boss. I was just like, yeah, whatever, you're just a guy. Like, you're just a dude in the car. My job is to make sure that you get to where you're going and you get to where you're going safely, so I'll do my job. And like I was always pretty blasé in that sort of space.
You get in any hairy situations that switched you on a bit more?
Yeah, well, and that's the interesting thing. As much as, like I just said, I was blasé as a digger, I was very acutely aware that I could function when I needed to. And probably the first time we got indirect every 15 minutes. We were stood to some stupid amount of times.
Oh, really?
Because it was when 2007 was when the what they call it, the surge, the push, something like that. The insurgents nearly retook Baghdad, and they were lobbing indirect in every bloody day. To the point where you become a bit complacent with it. Yeah. And like when I say complacent, we were playing volleyball there one day. We had a beach volleyball court that some of the other guys had built previous deployments. So we got pretty good at that. And we're down there playing volleyball against the workshops. And, don't try and picture the Top Gun scene where they're playing shirtless volleyball but with sort of overweight middle-aged guys. We're playing volleyball and the ball's a big lofty one and the warning siren's gone off for incoming rockets. You can hear the rocket coming. We stopped because we were like, stop. But we didn't stop and hit the deck. We stopped and looked up and we were like, let's just see where this goes. And the guys from the workshop, big lofty ball, spiked it, got the point. We then proceeded to argue over whether that was into or not. Because, well, the siren and the rocket, and it landed probably 100 metres, 200 metres down the road. We're like, no, that's no point. Replay that point because the rocket, that was in, and the workshop, no, fuck you. Like, we play on. Like, and that's how blasé you got. But this one particular incident, I was in the gun car that day because the gunner had gone on rocket. So he was on leave. So I was the troop leader's offsider. So it was me, Lieutenant Bury, and Jake, the young fellow I talked about before. We stitched up with the Bren gun. He was the driver. And we were parked outside the Australian Embassy on Haifa Street. And so basically Haifa Street runs parallel to the River Tigris in some sections there in Baghdad. And at the end, probably 2 or 3 Ks down, is the green zone, the big blast wall and checkpoints. But Haifa Street keeps going. So the LAV is parked outside the Australian Embassy, which is next door to the, I think it was 28 Cash, the Casualty and Surgical Hospital. So like MASH, like the TV show, but with less moonshine. And then across the road from that is the American Embassy, where all the medical staff work and live, and they basically cross the road, go to the hospital.
Oh, yeah.
So where the PC is in the embassy under the hard standing, picking up the ambassador. The other 3 vehicles from the troop, they are already at the destination out in the red zone, waiting for us to get there. And all of a sudden, it was like a lovely sunny day. I was sitting on the turret on the hatch with my feet dangling down because the green zone's a safe zone. The boss was sitting next to me, and Jake was standing on the engine deck. We were literally talking about the footy, like innocuous shit. And yeah, with no warning or nothing, a mortar landed basically next to the vehicle, but behind the blast wall we're parked next to.
Yeah, right.
So we buttoned up, like slid down and closed all the hatches. Jake started the engine, and it was something like 30 mortars within a minute and a half.
Oh.
So for those people that don't know, mortars are the ones that, the tube where the dude drops the bomb down. So to feed 30 mortars in under 2 minutes.
You must have had multiple tubes and pretty fast fucking...
Yeah, well, so we found out later on what they did is they had a taut liner truck, like the ones with the canvas sides, and they drove it to a cross intersection of Haifa Street and used Haifa Street as a linear target. Basically opened the side of the truck up, pumped 2 tubes, just pumped a heap of mortars into the tubes and then bugged out.
Yeah.
So, but those mortars, we were essentially, I don't know if they were aiming for us or it was just like, we're going to lob them and see where they go. But the LAV was kind of like the epicenter for most of the mortars. And I remember when the attack was happening, like, so as a gunner in SecDet in particular, you'd have your seat down because you're in sort of enclosed environments and urban terrain. So you'd actually traverse the turret sort of like from the hip. So you'd be standing up with your head above the turret so you could sort of see where your barrel is so you don't hit things and all that sort of stuff. So when I went down, I had nothing to sit on. So I'm sort of like got my foot on the front of the turret basket, pushing myself back up on the upright for the seat. And I remember feeling the vibrations of the mortars through the vehicle, through my body armor, straight into my spine. Like it was that, we had shrapnel all through the bins and stuff like that on the outside of the vehicle when it all subsided, but that's how close they were. So basically the boss was on the radio giving all the contact report and whatnot, and I turned all the thermals on, couldn't see anything because of all the dust. But once this sort of attack subsided, you could hear sort of screaming and whatnot. So we popped the hatches, and there were 2 Americans across the road from us that had been hit, and they were actually medical staff on their way to work at the 28 Cash. So I remember my boss kind of like getting the first aid kit that was strapped to the back of the hatch. He's like, "Oh, I'm going to go." And I'm like, what do you want me to do, boss? Like, what are we doing? So he didn't really tell me to do anything, but I just grabbed a heap of field dressings, ripped them off because we had the zip tied all through the vehicle. So I ripped a heap off, ran across the road. And I it's actually funny. I remember running across the road, and when you do first aid, they teach you Dr. ABC, danger, response, airways, breathing. And I remember in my head, just running across the road going, Dr. ABC, D, danger. And just like, I fucking don't know. The sky is exploding. Like I kind of like just verbalize that in my head. And but yeah, very much instinctively, and this sounds like a cliche, but the training just kind of took over. So the boss kind of got to these 2 casualties just before me, and he was working on this fella. I don't know his name. I just know he was a major, and I found that after the fact. And then the lady that I worked on, Captain Maria Ortiz, her name was, she was wearing like her PT gear, so black shorts and a grey shirt that said Army on it. And she was lying on the ground. The fella, he was sitting up, and I'll never forget this image. It's kind of like, you see the footage of when the World Trade Centers got hit and people covered in dust?
Yeah.
He looked like that. And I remember kneeling down and just for this very brief moment looking at him, and he was getting his bloody mobile phone out, and he's like, yeah, g'day, boss. I'm not coming into work. I've just been hit by a mortar. And every time he spoke, puffs of dust would come out his mouth. It was just, I don't know when, things happen and time slows down and you just pay attention to stupid details like that.
Yeah.
It wasn't like I was hypnotized by it, but I was like, fucking hell, righto, good on you. But Maria, I remember sort of looking at her, and on her shirt, like right where her navel was just a little red patch of blood. So I sort of ripped her shirt open, and she had a puncture wound just above her belly button. So I sort of like, and again, it sounds like a trope, but the training just cool. I remember leaning across her, so my shoulders were kind of like covering her field of view, so she couldn't see what I was doing. Because I remember being, don't let them, because it can cause panic.
No.
And then I just slid my hand under the small of her back, feeling for an exit wound, and there was just so there was an exit wound. So all I could do was get the field dressings, shove one under her back, grab another one, on her belly. So I'm like sort of like, yeah, cool, now what do I do? And she tapped me on the shoulder. So you got to think of the context that this is, so Maria was the head nurse of the unit, the 28 Cash. So very experienced nurse, 30 years in the army, something like that. Very acutely aware of what was happening to her. She taps me on the shoulder. So I sort of turn around and I was like, I don't know why I said this, but like, are you okay? It's like, well, no. But and she did. She just shook her head, and I was sort of like, oh, what else? What else is there? And she tilted her head back, and she had a bit of shrapnel like stuck in her throat. And there's nothing you can do for that. It's. I'm not going to pull that out, because if I pulled that out on the side of the street, who knows? So It's like, cool. We've got to pack that somehow. And in my head, I was like, cool, no worries. Like, don't touch it. But can you breathe? And she nodded. And I said, can you breathe a lot or a little? And she just, did that with her fingers, very little. And I was like, okay. And I just breathed with her. That's all I could do. And I just said, okay, just relax, just breathe with me, just, and I mean, this is, my interaction with her would have been no less than 10 minutes. And so I'm sort of holding her and just coaching her with breathing and stuff, trying to calm her down. And there was this Iraqi dude just passing me field dressings, like he was trying to help somehow. And there was these Americans bloody in a bunker yelling at us to take cover, to leave them. They're like, leave them, just go and sort yourself out. And it's like, these are your fellow countrymen, and I didn't know it at the time, but my boss actually told me a couple of days later, he's like, mate, if you weren't there, I was fucked. Like I kind of, and I don't mean this to belittle him in any way, but, he's like, I kind of froze. I got to the end of the script of what you were taught. And he goes, you were the one that was like, boss, he's got a big leg wound. He had a massive big like chunk of flesh missing from his thigh. Grab a field dressing and shove it in and do this. And he goes, you were telling me what to do. And I don't remember doing it, but he's like, yeah, man, you were like on point. But yeah, like, so we sort of stabilized him, if you want to call it that, for lack of a better term. And I remember these bloody Americans finally came out of the bunkers and whatnot, and a couple of our blokes from the embassy had brought a stretcher over. We got the bloke on a stretcher, off he went, and then so I'm left with these 3 Americans and a stretcher. So like, do you guys know how to put someone on a stretcher? And they're like, nah. They'd never been taught how to do it. So I had to give them like literally a Soldiers 5 battlefield lesson in like, this is how we put a casualty on the stretcher. And So I said, look, you get the stretcher. I'm going to roll her like this, and you do that. And this bloke at the head, I was like, you need to move her head with her because she's got this thing in her throat. So we need to stabilize her neck and everything. And when I roll her, you roll her head. And so we're all good. We're ready. Yep, cool. So I gave the 3, 2, 1. As I rolled her, this American fella freaked out. And like he literally threw his hands up in the air because there was blood and shit everywhere and let go of her head. And it was the most blood curdling scream that I've heard. And it was like, it was horrific because she couldn't breathe. So it's like, well, that's how much oxygen can you afford to, expel? But more to the point is it was unnecessary pain that was caused through lack of training. And anyway, we rolled her back on and I kind of strapped her down, and then 2 Australian blokes came over from the embassy, 2 diggers, and they literally, I was like, boys, grab this chick, get rid of her, take her to the hospital. And it was just so comforting, I suppose, to see 2 dudes immediately do what you had been taught, prepare to lift, and they lifted her up and they got her and they ran with it. And 6 infantry guys were able to shuffle this stretcher quickly to where it needed to go. And in contrast, I'm sitting there like death staring this American dude, this Air Force bloke, because he couldn't do the simplest of tasks because it was a bit icky.
Did Marie survive?
Oh, no, unfortunately, and that she passed away on the operating table a couple of minutes later. Literally, her friends and colleagues were working on her. So yeah, it was shit. What happened was shit. But at the same time, for me, it was like probably the first real time in my life where I've like, you've been put under a heap of pressure and you did well, like I'm not trying to play up what I did, but at the same time, when you've got a troop leader pulling you aside a week later and like, mate, you fucking good job. Like you did well. It was, and that was like the first sort of time where I realised that I've got a bit of leadership potential, if you want to call it that. But yeah, like we went to a memorial 2 days later. She was actually the first female casualty since Vietnam, I think, something like that.
Really?
Yeah. But even that was hard, like you roll in and, there's all these colleagues that have known her for years and years, and it's kind of like, who are you? What did you do? And it's like, well, I met her briefly in probably one of the most stressful circumstances of her life, and I did the best that I could, with what I had. I got debriefed by the medics and psychs, and they're like, mate, you couldn't have done anything more. Like you had field dressings. What are you supposed to do? But yeah, it was. I mean, to this day, I can't listen to The Killer's Mr. Brightside because that was the first. I got back to the rooms, had a shower, because we had to go out in the sun to get the patrol that was out. So we had to keep doing our job. So I was another 3 or 4 hours covered in blood, sitting in a turret in the hot sun. And I remember getting back, having a shower, just going to my room, headphones on, listening to that song. And to this very day, I'll hear that song and it's just, it just immediately just takes you back. So,
what was the drive out to the red zone like when you that had just happened?
Well, it was
in like a daze or
it was. So we just had to go into a QRF position. So essentially, we drove out to a checkpoint right on the edge of the green zone, and it was obviously just a blast wall. On the other side was the red zone, and it was just quiet. Me and Jake and the boss, just very few words. I remember standing in the turret, staring at, you got the desert cam, so the cookies and cream, bunny rabbits and love hearts. And just, I had blood on my boots and my pants, and all I had to wash my hands with were water bottles. So I didn't put gloves on, and even that choice, like we talk about the training area clear, gloves on, what happened. I remember forgoing the gloves. Like I pulled them out of my pocket and I threw them. I was like, fuck that. I don't have time to fart ass about trying to put on gloves And I made that snap decision in my head. And I still, to this day, remember thinking it's like, she's not going to have AIDS if she's in the army. We'll be right. And just hooked in. So we sat out in the sun for another hour and a half, 2 hours, just kind of ruminating, reflecting, decompressing, Yeah. And for me, the hard part was the following couple of days when, and I don't begrudge them for it, but it was like, when this happened, I was the guy that got the stretcher and unclipped it and handed it to Jono. And it's like, cool. It's good that you did that, but at the same time, like, don't try and pluck out your little bit of the story, and I don't know. I think it's just that time in the army, that no one had been in any really big contacts or anything like that. So people were trying to grab their little bit of a worry, if that makes sense. Yeah. I had it a couple of years later. I was in a pub in Melbourne talking to this random dude on Anzac Day. He was an Armoured Corps bloke, just coincidentally, had the badge on, so you get yarning. And he literally told me that story.
That he was there?
Yeah, like he told it as he was the one that did it. And I was like, oh, yeah, what year did this happen? What was her name? And, I can't remember.
He told your story to you?
Yeah.
What?
And I ended up sort of like, was it on this and this and this? And I kind of said, dude, don't fucking do that. Like,
what the fuck?
Yeah, and I mean, even years on, I've had this, it's been something I've never been able to do in terms of closure. So like I went to America a couple of years later and I drove past Arlington Cemetery going to the Air and Space Museum and didn't think to stop and go in and, pay my respects at her grave kind of thing. I've tried to reach out to the family there a few years back because she had a husband. And I found a memorial page to her and I know exactly who it was. It was the guy that I asked to hold her head because he was an American Air Force guy. So the other guys that came out to help were all Army and this one bloke was Air Force. But he had written this memorial on her memorial page about how he was there for her last moments and told this story about how she whispered in his ear, tell my family I love them. And I read that and I was like enraged. And I was sort of like, I'm not going to do anything about it because that's his coping mechanism. And if that gives the family some kind of solace or confidence knowing that she was surrounded by people trying to help her in her last moments, then just let sleeping dogs lie.
Yeah.
But it's still sad that people,
It's like stolen valor, almost.
Well, that's a whole nother thing. So
you've experienced that too, obviously.
Well, if you do it, I was going to ask you whether you did a bit of Google of my name or not, because you would have found that I would be associated with a Stolen Valor website. But
really?
Not for Stolen Valor. And it's a
for calling someone out.
It's a yarn. It's a good yarn.
Look that up, eh?
Well, it the website ANZMI, Australian New Zealand Military Imposters.
No.
Do you want me to tell? I'll tell you. It's a good story.
Okay.
So there's this website. I became aware of it.
Is it still going?
No, but this is what the story's about. So I became aware of it, would have been maybe 2004-ish, when a mate of mine showed it to me just out of the blue. And essentially, ANZMI, Australian New Zealand Military Imposters, is they were a clandestine website that exposed stolen valor in Australia. And when my mate showed it to me, I was like, oh, yeah, cool, whatever, move on. And it wasn't until I was president of the Toowoomba RSL, it would have been 2019, 2020. I was there in the office one day and the phone rang and the secretaries passed it to me and she's like, someone wants to speak to you. G'day, Scott May, how you going? And he's like, my name's Ernest Bounds and I represent ANZMI. I need you to give me the membership details and any corresponding documents you've got to one of your members because we've received an anonymous report that he is a military imposter. And I've gone, no, you can go fuck yourself because that's a confidentiality thing. I'm not giving you anything. Anyway, I said, look, what I'll do is I'll give you our members, you give me your mobile and I'll get my member to ring you. Or I'll ask him if it's okay if I give my number, your number. Anyway, so they spoke to one another and the member, Troy, he rings me back and he's like, mate, they've accused me of being a military imposter because on Anzac Day, someone saw me wearing an Afghanistan campaign medal and I was in the Navy and there's no oceans in Afghanistan. Therefore, I'm a medal cheat. So I was like, yeah, whatever. And Troy was going through a divorce and he's got his own mental health struggles and just all sorts of stuff. And then these blokes decided just to make his life hell until he proved that he wasn't a medal cheat. So they were, send us your record service long. So he's like, okay, if this is what it'll take for you to leave me alone, there you go. But he redacted all the personal addresses and phone numbers. No, this isn't good enough because you've redacted stuff. So you're clearly lying. So he was guilty before he'd been proven innocent. And anyway, I advocated for him and told these blokes to shove it. And anyway, a couple of weeks later, a very, very defamatory article was published on their website about Troy. He's a medal cheat. He's not who he says he is. This is the worst person in the world. And I got an honourable mention in it because I was a president of an RSL that was advocating for stolen valour. And so anyway, I just sort of let it go for a bit. And then I just sort of got word through the grapevine somehow that these people are sort of gunning for me now. So the best defense is a good offense. So I lent into it. So I went and got a burner phone, got myself a prepaid, set up a fake email account under Gmail. And I never once did I lie. The email address was my surname and my last name, or my middle name, sorry. And I sent an anonymous tip through their anonymous tip portal about Scott May, the medal cheat. And I just kind of, this isn't going to go anywhere. We'll just see what. Anyway, probably a week later, this burner phone starts ringing. So I answered it. I didn't disguise my voice, didn't change anything. G'day, how you going? I just never once said Scott speaking. And, it's Ernest speaking. How are you? So I'm talking to the same dude that I spoke to as the president of the RSL. And he goes, we've got this anonymous tip on this piece of shit, Scott May. We've been looking for him. We're going to bring him down. And he goes, you sent this tip in. And basically what I did is, so that incident that involved Maria, I got given a silver commendation. And that's an award you're only supposed to wear if you're a serving member. It's a little medallion.
Right.
And there's a photo of me in the Anzac Day after I got out of defence. I wore it on my tie when I did a speech for the RSL. So I sent that photo in saying, this, you're not supposed to wear this. Because you go through their portfolio, they were smashing dudes for wearing Vietnam medals on the wrong side or wearing them like some of the stuff they were doing was so arbitrary it wasn't funny.
Yeah.
And so I sent that in. That was my, he's a medal cheat. And these guys just took hook, line and sinker. And they actually recruited me to investigate myself. And this was like when COVID was kind of restrictions were coming in and all this sort of jazz. So they'd ring me up once a week and they'd give me tasks. You need to get this information and you need to do this. So I was doing things like I was a police officer when I got out of the army. So I understand investigations and the onus of proof. And I was giving them enough information where if they had corroborated it, they would have gone like, hang on a tick, this dude's not legit. But they never once corroborated evidence. They just took it and ran with it. So like I would do things like with my younger brother, we'd change our Facebook profiles, our pictures, and we'd have a chat like on Facebook Messenger and just talk about the SecDet trip and names of people that were on it. And out of the 10 names, 9 of them would be wrong, 1 of them would be right. So all they had to do was find the SecDet nominal roll and go, hang on a tick, Dick Clark wasn't on SecDet. This guy's garbage. And I'd send them stuff like that. And then we need more. And it got to the point where I basically told them, look, I've lost my phone, COVID restrictions, I can't go out to get a new one. You're just going to have to email me. And the more that I dove into this website, the more just horrific it got. Like there's lawsuits out there where people had tried to sue them for defamation and no one had ever been caught because no one could identify who wrote the article. And I knew where to go to get these court documents. So there was, some of them were just brutal. So anyway, I basically, he's like, what do you need me to do? They said, can you write a statutory declaration confirming everything you've done for us? Because once we've got that, then we'll stitch him up. And so I went out and I printed a stat deck, and a stat deck doesn't become a stat deck until it is signed by a JP. So as much as it's on a stat deck form, it's like a forgery. It has to accurately represent the document it's trying to forge. So I printed out a stat deck form, but I changed it enough where the untrained eye could be like, hang on a tick, this isn't a stat deck. So one of the things I did was when I signed it, I used my signature, and the little stamp that I used was like a coffee. You know when you get a coffee, they stamp your card?
Oh, yeah.
It was like a coffee coupon stamp. So if they had read it, they would have gone, what the fuck? This is...
You use that for the JP's
Yeah, and
signature.
I just photoshopped that over it and made it look like it was, so there was enough on there where blind Freddie could have looked at it and gone, hang on a tick, this isn't legit. And anyway, like a day or two later, I get an email back from this Ernest fella, and he's like, I've just read your stat deck. And I'm like, oh, shit, yeah, okay, they're on to me, which is what I kind of wanted.
Yeah.
Can you change it to say this? So they literally just sent me a narrative of what to change. And I was like, okay, yeah, no worries, I'll do that. So I changed it. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, I get an email from Ernest on my RSL Queensland email that I've got. It's basically like, we've got you dead to rights. You better fess up now, you piece of shit. And I'm just kind of like, righto. So I, the movie Taken?
Yeah.
With Liam Neeson, the line when he's on the phone to the guys after they just kidnapped his daughter.
Yeah, I don't know who you are, but I've got a very particular set of skills.
Yep. So I that's all I replied. I literally looked up the script and cut and pasted that. I don't know who you are, but I will find you and I will destroy it, whatever it was. And I sent that to them. And then they just took that as game on. And then all of a sudden I'm getting emails of these veiled threats on my RSL email, and then my Andrew May one that I'd set up, my alias, they're like, yeah, we've got him. We're gonna expose him in a fortnight. And it got to the point, because I'd found out no one had been able to identify the authors in the defamation cases. I'm like, okay, cool. Let's see if I can get them to fess up to writing these articles. And I actually asked them, can you send me the first draft? I just want to have a bit of a read of it. Just do it as a bit of a gentleman's thing. Like, I've been helping you out. Like, this is payment. And they did. So this is what we're going to write. And I actually added to it. So I added to my own, and then they were harassing me through my RSL account. And even that, it got to the point where I sent basically like, this took me to a pretty dark place. I sent an email basically inferring I'm going to go kill myself. I'm like, because this is when the Royal Commission into Veteran Suicide was going on. So I'm like, I'm going to see what they do with this. And the reply I got was he's a piece of shit, and if he goes and hangs himself, then that's just one metal fraud less in the world that we have to deal with. So like zero sympathy at all.
Yeah.
Anyway, D-Day came and they published this article about, and I was their number one rogue. So I was their homepage picture of me on an RSL photo shoot I did wearing a suit and the medals, and you look up ANZMI and there I am. And I'm getting phone calls that morning from like Tony Ferris, RSL Queensland state president. He's like, what the fuck's going on? Like, what have you been doing? And I was like, Tony, mate, I've been telling you what I was doing the whole time. And as far as I'm concerned, there were certain sub-branches that were complicit in this. Like there's a sub-branch in inner city Brisbane that has a link to the ANZME website that says, if you know a metal cheat, dob them in, here's where you do it.
Yeah, right.
And I said, like, this is not, whether it's bloody someone parking illegally or pretending to be a veteran, with stolen valor, it is not the average person's to be judge, jury, and executioner. Like, you go to the police, You know, I'm sure there are people out there that have met a dude on Anzac Day that's not quite.
Doesn't feel right.
Yeah, and you don't sit there and be like, oh, I'm going to publicly shame you on Facebook. Like, you know, anyway. And I understand the irony that I've done what I've done after saying don't be judged, you're an executioner. But, yeah, so I'm getting all these. I got a phone call from a member of the RSL. He's like, I've just checked the ANSME website and you're on it, you bloody sack of shit. And I was like, well, okay, so I know who you are now. Like, and so 12 o'clock that day, I do a live feed on Facebook. And I had made a big PowerPoint presentation. And I've got my big TV up on the wall with a PowerPoint. And I'm like, so you'll notice here, and I just picked apart all of the evidence that I've given them. Here's the stat deck, and here's the coffee stamp that the bloody peanut, they could have verified this and they didn't, and da-da, so they're full of shit. And then in one of their emails they sent to my RSL account, they've used that as part of the evidence in their case against me. And it says, you will notice here, Scott May has used his RSL Queensland email account to try and flex his muscle to get us to back down, but we're not afraid of him. And it was the friggin' Liam Neeson quote that they'd put up there. So they didn't even know I was pulling the piss. And anyway, so at the end of this live feed, I was like, all right, here we go, team. Here's step one to what we're going to do. We're going to crash their website, send them your favourite movie quote because they clearly don't have a life. So let's just belt feed movie quotes. And it went out of hand. Like it crashed the website 4 or 5 times over the next couple of days. And I was getting messages from people, bloody, you know, like, hey, mate, saw your video. Here's what I just sent, screenshots of their favourite movie quotes and memes and all sorts of shit. It was a really cool demonstration of like people power. And once that died down, they removed. So there was hundreds of people that they'd put up there. Some of them fairly, but again, not their job to sit there and take the guy that's a meth head that's pretending to, you know, the one that my mate showed me years ago was at the Narre police station was a dude dressed up as an army officer to bail his son. And just coincidentally, I ended up working with this detective down the track when I was a copper, and Steve has walked out. And he's like, what are you doing here? I literally arrested you last week. You're not in the army. So there were those sort of people on it, but then there were legitimate veterans that just didn't know. So then what they did is they pulled out all the stops and they tried to dox me. So I was the number one rogue. Here's my phone number and here's my email address. Call him up and tell him how much of a piece of shit he is.
Oh, yeah.
And that backfired on them spectacularly. I was getting phone calls left, right and centre from people. They're like, yep, I've been targeted by these blokes. They're a pack of pricks. You know, I had one guy, and it was sad. Like I had one guy ring up and he's like, my mate killed himself over these guys. Oh. Literally, they wrote an article. DVA suspended his payments based on it. So he committed suicide. I had a clinical psychologist from South Australia rang me up and thanked me. He's like, mate, I've got a patient I've been working with for years and he's just rang my office like crying that this website is gone. He's off it. And I said, what do you mean? And he's like, oh, are you the guy from the ANZ ZMI website? And he's like, you have saved this guy's life. I had the secretary of DVA ring me up. And she's like, you know, and it was all very formal. Oh, my name's such and such, secretary of DVA. Every time someone's identified by this website, it triggers a welfare check by us.
Yeah, right.
Because there's such a problem. 25 years they've been doing this.
What?
Yeah. And
could nobody find this dude?
No, dudes. We did. But yeah, she's like, asked me all this. It was a full-on proper welfare check. And at the end of it, she goes, can I just speak off the record real brief? I said, yeah, sure. And she goes, thank you. I was like, what do you mean? She goes, this website has been a pain in our ass and you're the first person that's actually been able to dent it. And I had a yarn to her and she's like, oh, they're horrible. Like they're just, you know. But whilst all this was going on, I've got a mate who lives in Mexico. I went to Iraq with Willie and he's pretty good at coding. So he picked apart their website and we got names.
Oh, nice.
And we found 5 names in particular that started the website and we traced it all back to the Tweed Heads RSL. And we found the original administrator of the website, and we paid a visit to him. We knocked on his door. He lives down the Caboolture way. And we basically said, hey, mate, we know it's you. This website goes away and never, ever comes back ever again. And if it does, that book you're writing about what you did in Vietnam that was so extraordinarily epic will be fucking bombed. So, basically a couple of days after that, the website disappeared. It was, but I mean, and the irony of the whole thing was, this went for 6 months. Ernest Bounds died in France in World War One.
Yeah, right. I was going to say, but how could you have a name and not be able to find him? There?
Yeah, and I was like, do you find the irony that, like, when I was on the phone to him as Scott May, do you find the irony that you're a veteran exposing veterans for stolen valor, yet you're using a digger's name from World War One? Like, and the 6 main people involved in it were less than ideal soldiers. Like their civilian life. One of them was going to court for torturing cats and
what the fuck?
Yeah, just funnily enough, I was talking to a guy who rang me up to thank me because his mate was going through cancer treatment and actually died of cancer with his name associated with the website. And it was all because on his medals from Vietnam, he put like a 25-year memorial one, which doctrinally you're not meant to do. But if you look at Keith Payne's rack, he's got friggin' 50 of them, but nobody questions that. But anyway, and this guy rang me up and goes, oh, yeah, mate, thank you. My friend passed away because of this. It was like one of his big regrets that he was still on this website. It really tore him up. And we got chatting and he goes, who was the one that investigated? I said, oh, it was Ernest Bounds. And he goes, oh, mate, did you ever find him? I said, no, I couldn't. I couldn't pinpoint who he was. And this bloke goes, yeah, he's from overseas. And I said, what makes you think that? And he goes, because every time he rings up, you get the international call tone. And I was like, shit. In my head, I just thought that was a recording device.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, that's just the record, And as soon as he told me that, I expanded my search. And then through IP addresses and all sorts, I found him. He's a Kiwi. He was in the former Kiwi Navy.
Yeah, right.
And I literally rang him up. and because he had a real estate business in New Zealand somewhere. And he's answered the phone. And as soon as he answered, it's like, this is Ernest,
You know his voice.
And he's like, oh, such and such realty, such and such speaking. And I've just gone, g'day, Ernest. And then, but, yeah, like that was just next level. I'm not the sort of guy that fixates on stuff, but at the same time, what they were doing to people was brutal, and even to this day, like this is 2020, I still get people now. Like I was talking to a mate not long ago and he's friends with Rachel Ingram, a photographer. Military photographer, and she got targeted by them to the point where she stopped wearing her medals. And that was all based off, you're a chick, you can't have all those medals because you wouldn't have deployed to those places. And it's like, no, she was a war photographer. Like she would have, like it's still to this day, I still.
Fucking hell.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it's never the people that are successful and happy that I'm doing that sort of shit to people, is it?
No, I mean, and the irony of the whole thing is I'm not going to say who started the website, but like I said before, the person who started it has enough of a story where they've got a book about it from Vietnam. And it's like, why? Why do you need to then do this off to the side,
Yeah. If it's for stolen valor, but then fucking crucifying people for wearing the wrong medals and stuff like that, like, can just be like, I've got this medal, I don't know what to do with it. Fucking, I guess I'll wear it.
Yeah, exactly. And for me, like the way I look at it is that if you are so affronted by someone portraying themselves to be a veteran, just go bail them up about it. Hey, mate, I think you're full of shit. Because that's how they're going to learn. Like, some of the ones on that ANSME website were farcical. Like there was the Hines twins. And there's photos of them with their tunics on looking like a North Korean general kind of thing. They had that many. But at the same time, Like, if it's that much of an issue, go and report it to the police, because you don't know what that person's going through. You don't know if there's some kind of underlying mental health condition, survivor's guilt. Like, there's so many people you talk to that were, oh, yeah, mate, I was in the army, but I went to Afghanistan, but I was just a cook or a pay clerk. And they do that to bolster their own self-confidence. Like, just why can't we just, hey, mate, just be proud of your service, be proud of what you did. You did your bit, you did your job. Whether you're a truck driver or a grunt, doesn't matter. Like, and like I ended up going to the Royal Commission over this. They originally didn't want to hear from me. And then when I sort of outlined it a bit more, I sat down with the commissioner, and I said, like, the irony in what you're doing with the Royal Commission is, veteran suicide. I said, one of the biggest hurdles veterans have to get over in the society is other veterans.
Yeah.
Like, they just tear one another down, and I don't get it.
Yeah, for sure. Especially like combat veterans that feel like other veterans aren't worthy. I put a post up the other day from Huck talking about, you sign the dotted line, it doesn't matter if you're deployed or not, because often it's just bad luck. Like you were saying before, your name started with M and they just went through the alphabet. But then other combat veterans go, nah, fuck off. It's because they're a piece of shit and they fucking weren't, they only pick the good ones and all that sort of stuff. Like, no, sometimes you're just not in the right place at the right time.
Oh, mate, 100%.
Yeah.
It's, the friendly banter and the rivalries, like Armoured Corps Infantry and NG, everyone hates the Navy kind of thing. That's fine. But then, I don't see why there's like, this day and age, there's kind of two tiers of the veteran community. Like you just said, there's the combat veterans, and then you've got the logistics people that help. And to put it in context, I know an Armoured Corps combat veteran that did pack-up trips. And then when you talk to him about SecDet, he's like, oh, yeah, we drove armoured Land Cruisers here and there, and we stopped to change a flat tyre. And it's like, well, when I was there 5 years before, you didn't stop for shit. And if you did, you got a bullet in the head. Like, because Iraq had changed. And at the same context, I've got another mate that's a truck driver, and he was getting in contacts left, right and centre. Like getting out of the truck and getting his F88 and having a blue. It's sort of like, and even that term combat veteran, like, I really dislike it. It's, mate, you're a veteran. It's just, it is what it is,
Yeah, whatever your job was, you were there.
Yeah. I read a book before I went to Afghanistan. It was a World War I digger. It was his diaries. And I remember this one paragraph just stuck with me. And he basically says, warfare is 99% boredom, 1% action. And having deployed twice, spot on.
Yeah.
For the 7 months I was in Afghanistan, you could probably go, these are the war stories, and count them on your two hands. If you would ask me, how many times did you have left-handed rock throwing competitions? You'd be like, oh, mate, let's map this out. Let me some crayons and butcher's paper. Like, and they're the stories worth telling, in all honesty. Like we were chatting about it before we started, like some of the funniest shit and just good stories come from not doing your job. You're at your job.
Yeah,
you're not doing it, like
you got to fucking lighten the conversation a little. Have you got anything that comes to mind?
Oh, well, I mean, talking about not doing your job whilst doing your job, probably it would be my crowning achievement in terms of practical jokes. So it was when I was in SecDet in Iraq. We went off and we went to this. It was a CIA task force called Task Force Troy, and it was all about anti-IED stuff. So they literally teach you how to make an IED, so you understand how they work and you can spot them. So, and it's not like it's a soldier's 5 kind of thing, and that gave me a really good foundation to fuck with people. So back at the accommodation in the Cove, I don't know why it was there, but it was like the stubby holders that are like hard plastic with the foam on the inside, and on the bottom of it's the stubby lid opener. It's one of them, and it was a Port Adelaide, who was in the AFL Grand Final that year. Port Adelaide and someone, Collingwood we'll say. And anyway, so when you twisted the top off, it would play the theme song of the footy. Yeah, Port Adelaide. Yeah, okay. It played the theme song of the team that won the grand final. And it got to the point one day where someone cracked the shits with this thing and they threw it. And then it started playing the other team's theme song. So it must have been programmed of like, yeah, just flick this switch and it'll play one of the two. So anyway, I got this thing getting back to the tinkering and pulled it apart. And we'd done our Task Force Troy IED training. And I was like, sweet, I'm going to tuck this down the wall. So I hit it down the wall cavity near one of the guys, Adrian's head. So his pillow's here in his bunk. So I sort of stuck it down the wall cavity. And I ran a trigger wire up to the door. So to get into my bedroom in Secdet, you walked into the main common room, you walked into a bedroom where Adrian and 3 other lads slept, and then you turned left into another door. So it was like a thoroughfare. So every time this door opened, I made up a trigger, like an IED trigger, so a contact trigger. So every time this door snipped shut, this song would play. And every time someone walked into the common room, this door would just happen to blow open a little bit and snip shut. So Adrian's lying in bed with this fucking Port Adelaide football theme song. He thought he was hearing shit in his head.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But turns out it was this fucking stubby cooler.
Well, just because it's like playing really muted.
Faintly enough in the wall where he could hear it at all hours of the night. And but that was a really good one. That was this is leading on to my crowning one. And then I was like, oh, sweet. So I kind of like ramped it up a little bit. And in my room, so you know the Shawshank Redemption, how Andrew Dufresne tunnels out and he's got the poster of the pin-up girl in his cell and that hides the entrance to the tunnel. So that gave me a bit of inspiration here. In my room was just blasted with FHM models from guys from previous trips. But at my bunk, there was a hole in the wall that went in, I could literally stick my hand through and drop cookie crumbs on the guy's bed on the other side of the wall, which I may or may not have done every now and then and watch them fight over who was eating on his bed. But anyway, so I went to the market one day and they had these little clocks you could buy. They were like a mosque and they were just an old analog clock. But you could set an alarm to them. So every 12 hours, if you set the alarm for 2 o'clock at 2 in the morning and 2 in the afternoon, this alarm would go off and the alarm was the call to prayer. Mm-hmm. So I grabbed one of these clocks, wrapped it in a rag, grabbed 2 more posters, Andy Dufresne the wall, so it just looked like more of this fucking FHM stuff. And I did this when the new rotation of blokes came in. So you got all these new blokes from 214, we happened to know them. We've moved out of our accommodation. We were staying in the gym for like 10 days whilst we're doing a bit of a handover. And I know I've hidden this thing in this hole in the wall, put 2 nudie posters over it. No one's none the wiser. And this was one of those rare moments in life where a lot of people are in on a joke and no one says boo. So pretty much my whole troop knew about it. And anyway, first night, the bloody new blokes are sleeping in these rooms and we had like a little sort of smoking area, bar area, and we're all sitting there and, the next morning, did you sleep, boys? And one of the guys goes, oh, that bloody fella that sings, how do you deal with that? And it's like, oh, you just get used to it, mate. And they did. They played Call to Prayer across the loudspeakers in the city. Yeah. Right. And mate, you eventually you won't even hear it. Don't worry about it. And anyway, day 2 comes around and, oh, mate, that bloody fella, like, fuck, he's loud. Like, you sure? Yeah, you'll ignore him. Don't worry about it. And it was probably 3 or 4 days later, we were sitting there, 12 o'clock in the afternoon, stinking hot sun, and all these new blokes are up on the roof of the accommodation with expander foam. They'd gone to the market and found expander foam. And I was like, what are you lot doing? Oh, we're gonna spray expander foam down all the vents to so we don't have to listen to that fella sing. And I was like, guys, as a plumber that worked in heating and cooling and vent, do not do that because condensation, you'll get mold. Don't. Just fucking deal with it. Nah. And they load up all these vents with expander foam. And we just let it go. And like over the course of 10 days, I remember once we were sitting there, it was probably 6 o'clock at night. And one of these blokes, Torres, I think his name was, he comes running out of the rooms. Shut the fuck up. Yeah, and he's like full on just shaking his fist at the minarets and not realising that if you walked outside, you didn't hear the call to prayer.
They thought it was coming over the wall or something.
I don't know, but we just, everyone, oh, yeah, man. Yeah, he's annoying, isn't he? And it would have been maybe I'm home 2 or 3 months later. I'm in bed in the morning, and my housemate Smithy walks in, and he's got his mobile. It's like an old style flip out one. And he's on the phone. He opens it and goes, Maisie, it's Nick. I'm on the phone for you. And he just throws his mobile at me. And Nico's one of the guys that took over from us. Hey, Nico, how you going, mate? How is it? And he just goes, you're a freaking C-bomb. And I'm like, what? And he goes, we found it. I was like, what are you talking about? And he goes, the fucking clock. And I was like, man, I don't know what you're talking about. And he's like, we know it was you. And he goes, Torres was literally becoming an insomniac, lying in bed, like just stressing out. And I was like, mate, 100%, I do not know what you're talking about. And he goes, you left a fucking note with it that said, how long did it take you to find me? Love, Maisie. Oh, that clock. Yeah, mate. Yeah. You know, and like,
fuck.
Oh, man.
What time did you have it set for? 2 a.m.?
Nah, it was like an hour. It would have been about 6, maybe 5, yeah, because it would have gone off super early in the morning.
Oh, yeah.
So it was kind of like close enough to the call to prayer, but far enough where it was not noticeable. But yeah, I know even when they come back, I remember talking to Nico and he's like, fucking hell, man, like you did people's heads in. Like they were full on stressing out. I was like, was there mold? And he goes, oh, the friggin' mold. Like I told you not to block the vents. Like
Oh, fuck.
oh, but
Stitched them up good.
nah, it's but I mean, but that's the sort of stuff that I would do, you know, like just
Very elaborate thing.
oh yeah, the long term. It's like, you know, it's like gluing a coin to the urinal. You're never going to see the result of that, but you know that someone's going to pick it up. You know, it's a skill I'm trying to teach my young fellas at the moment. It's not about watching the practical joke happen. It's about
Just knowing.
yeah. I mean, even in Afghanistan, we had a Dutch ration pack there one day. I think it was Dutch or American, and it had this protein bar thing in it. And I bit it. I'm like, oh, this is gross. And I just, you know, we were out for 2 months building this patrol base, and I don't know why, but I was playing with it, and I'm like, oh, this is cleaning my hands. Like it was pulling all the dirt out of all the bits in my. So I was like rolling it, like cleaning my hands. And I was like, oh, it looks like a poo. So anyway, we were about to go out on a patrol, and the big communal toilets they had, which is just a big pit full of diesel with the honey pot over it and a little Hessian wall. So we went over and got this protein bar that now looks like a poo, lifted the lid and just sort of stuck it on the edge and closed the lid. And we literally sat there for like half an hour. Someone's going to the loo, and there'd be these 10 cav dudes just staring at the shitter. And, he didn't bloody use that one. And just as we're about to leave, like literally the boss is on the radio, prepare to start up. All the crew commanders are doing all their finger signals and stuff. And I'm on the radio. I'm like, someone's about to have a shit. And they're going. And we were the rear call sign. So I'm like, Hungy, my crew, I'm like, mate, we got to see what happens. So there's, you know, the lav patrols off they go, and there's this gun car with the crew commander and the gunner, like just their noses above the hatch, and there was this Dutch liaison dude, and he's popped the lid and he's like taking a step back and he's seen this poo looking thing, and he dead set like looks around, flicks it off with his fingers, and we're just like, you bloody dirty bro, as we're driving past, like, but yeah, you got to do that sort of stuff. If you don't, you just go, you know, silly.
Yeah, for sure. It keeps you sane.
Yeah.
So what's you did 7 months in Iraq and then another 6 or 7 in Afghan?
Yeah, so I actually did back-to-back deployments, which is why ultimately I was only in defence for a short time. So I literally came home from Iraq, had the 2 weeks decompression leave, whatever they call it, back at training cell at 214, 2 or 3 days in, one of the bosses comes down, we need volunteers to go to the next RTF trip, chuck my hand up. And then pretty much had to get special waivers signed.
Because you hadn't been home long enough?
Yeah, because you're supposed to have 8 months, I think it was, or some kind of decompression time. And we're just like, nah, send us. So it was me and Hungy. We were crew, which is kind of cool because you didn't get that opportunity to work with the same crew. So I was in Hungy's crew in Iraq, and then we did lead-up training and RTF as a crew, which I think made it more bearable. And then basically got back and I was just cooked. I was just...
When you got back from Afghan?
Yeah. I was just exhausted and tired, and I was going to my, like as a good little soldier, you use your chain of command, and and I had Lieutenant Richardson, who was a great bloke, but he inherited a troop of Rio diggers, and the rest of us were burnt out, bitter and jaded, pissed off, just didn't give a fuck. And then the troop sergeant we had, he was just a cockhead. I was actually thinking about this the other day. I didn't have great leadership when I was in defence in who I worked with. So I've come back from back-to-back deployments, working with, operational context, to coming back home to a garrison-style soldiering, painting rocks.
Yeah.
But I was then also working with a troop sergeant that hadn't been around an armoured vehicle for many, many years because he was an RI for that long, that was so just like, when you get, how there's the standard, then there's, but I'm going to get you to do it this way because that's my standard. And then there's that next level where I'm just a fuckhead and you'll do what you're told because I'm the sergeant. That's where he was. So I had a very junior lieutenant and a very, he was just a tool, sergeant. And then the 2IC of the squadron had changed when I was away, and so would the OC. And the 2IC was from British Armoured Corps. I think he was the CO of one armoured or two armoured regiment over there or something. And he still thought he was the CO of two armoured regiment. And you know how you got British and Australian militaries, a similar structure, but very different in the way they operate.
Yeah.
He didn't delineate from that. And the first time I actually met him was after PT, having smoko, and he's walked in and literally stood in front of me. Like I was dead. This is 100%. I'm sitting there next to Wal with a chicken Kiev ball and a freaking chalky milk. And he walks in, he goes, "Corporal May, you're a piece of shit. You're a cancer on this regiment. You do nothing for me." And he just beasted me. And I remember sitting there with this chicken Kiev ball looking at this dude, and like the cheese is running down my hand. And I'm like, this is burning, but don't move. Like, and then when he walked off, I've looked at Wal and gone, who the fuck was that? And what have I done in the 90 minutes I've been back at work to piss him off to that point?
Did you ever find out?
I did. So my little brother was in the army. He was actually posted to the same squadron and everything.
Oh, right.
And Christopher and Cap had a bit of a run-in, and he didn't delineate between me and him. He just saw May.
Oh, true. And
he thought I was Chris. I mean, to his credit, like, Captain was just a full-time cockhead. And it's like, the series Band of Brothers, David Schwimmer's character, Captain Sobel, in the very first episode, he gives this lecture about you salute the rank, not the man.
Oh, yeah.
He literally gave us that lecture.
Oh, yeah.
In that, not the same verbiage, but the context. And then the day I discharged, I've walked out of SHQ and I saluted him on the way out because he's a captain and I was just a corporal. And he just looked at me and like mumbled. And I turned around and was like, "You salute the rank, not the man, sir. Like, go fuck yourself." But he was just a tool. And then my troop sergeant, he was the kind of guy that used his rank as his means of management. So like I actually was on rear details there because I was on a chit because of mental health stuff, and they put me on some medication where I wasn't allowed to use a gun. And anyway, so the squadron was out doing something for 2 or 3 weeks outfield. So it was me and 6 other blokes on rear details, and I was the highest ranked person left in the squadron. So I actually had to go up to RHQ and sign a document that gave me provisional command of the squadron. And the CO's like, here you go, mate, you're the highest ranked person there. You can do everything except approve leave. I was like, sick, no worries, cool. But having said that, like I went back to the boys and I was like, cool, we've got 2 weeks. Here's are the jobs I want done. And essentially day by day, this is what we need to do. When we achieve our target, we go home, but the job has to be done properly. And in that 2 weeks, like I don't remember before I said we were given the dilapidated derelict building. We repainted that 2-story SHQ building, whitewashed the walls, and then all the troop squadron colours around the trims. You know, it cost us $500 in troop funds, but the morale boost that came from going away with a dilapidated, crappy offices and coming back with nice, clean, fresh walls, and we did a heap of work. Anyway, it was probably a week or two after that. One of the guys comes down. He's like, Maisie, you need to go see the boss in his office. So I've toddled up and walked into the office, and the boss was standing in the corner of his office, and the troop sergeant was sitting at his desk. You know, like the power dynamic of, hang on, but you're the troop leader. You should be sitting in the troop leader's seat at the troop leader's desk, not standing in the corner like a cuck watching a dude bone his wife. And so I've walked in and addressed the boss. Hey, boss, you wanted to see me? Oh, no, sergeant wanted to see you. I was like, okay, what can I do for you? And he's like, he basically goes, you're a corporal now. You are not acting the way a corporal should act. And I was like, what do you mean? Well, he goes, there's 2 ways of doing things. Is you smash the boys and they respect you because you're a corporal, or you hand your rank slide in and you're not a corporal anymore.
What the fuck?
And I went, hang on a tick. I said, so you're saying because what in my work that has led, what have I done to warrant that kind of response? No, that's just not how it works. Once you get rank, you're no longer friends with the boys. You're not one of the boys, and you need to start smashing them. And I literally sat there and was like, cool. So I took, the rank slides on your chest. I pulled that off, and I sort of held the rank slide, and I was like, mate, I said, I would rather in 10 years' time tell my son or daughter that I had a cockhead troop sergeant that threatened to demote me for not smashing the boys, and he gave me the choice. So I pulled my rank slide off and threw it at him, and then I flicked it at him. Said, you can fucking have it. And I've turned around to walk out, and he's stopped, and he's like gone bright red, and that's not how this works. You put that back on, you start smashing the boys. I'm like, no, I'm going to do corporaling my way, like how I do it, And I ended up, the meeting kind of it ended up in this stalemate of me going, I don't care who you are, like take a flying leap. Then the boss came rushing, oh mate, just grab this and get out. And he bailed me up 2 or 3 weeks later, and he's like, what are you going to do? And I was like, I put my discharge in, boss. Like, I don't need to work for these people. Like, I'm big enough and dumb enough. I've got trade qualifications. I said, if this is the way that the army is going to run, I don't want to be part of it. And that captain's fella, he was the same. Like, I went down there, and this is all within months of me coming back from Afghanistan. Like when I say I was cooked, I was not coping. And I wanted to go home for a family thing, and there was like an investment property I wanted to look at the same time. And I could have booked my flights, not said anything, left on Friday, been back Sunday, rocked into work on Monday, and just been like, yeah, I went to the Normanby on the weekend. I didn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
Or do the right thing and put in a leave app. So Monday morning, I got up to Clark, hey, mate, I want to do this thing on the weekend. I didn't, last minute. And we walked this leave app through. And it got to the point where the 2 of us had to sign it. And he's down at the simulators running a training thing. So I've gone down there, and he's out the front. I'm like, g'day, sir. How you going? I know it's last minute, but I've got this leave app. Everyone signed it. SSM signed off. The bosses, everyone's done. I just want to go home for a family thing on the weekend. Can you please have a look at it and sign it for me if that's okay? And he turns around and he goes, what have you done for the regiment lately? And I sort of look at him and said, pardon? He's like, what have you done for the regiment lately? He goes, you have not organised a single barbecue, trivia night. You've not ran sportos once. You've not taken a single PT session in the entire time I've been here. I was like, well, I've been in Afghanistan and Iraq doing our job sort of thing. And he turns around and he goes, look, you can get in the simulator and do a stage 6 shoot, which is like your entry-level zeroing shoot. He goes, if you pass it, I'll sign the leave app. If you fail it, I'll decline the leave app. And I said, I'm sorry, sir, but this is a human request. I'm just asking you to yes or no. If you say no on this and give me a good reason, then I'll cop it. But I said, I know that I can get in that thing and pass a stage 6 shoot piece of piss. And he goes, well, why don't you? I said, because it's principle. Like you're being a cock for being a cock sort of thing. And we had a bit of a tiff, and I sort of turned around, and I was just really short, and I was like, sir, don't worry about it. With all due respect, let's go fuck yourself. And I just like grabbed the leave app out of his hand and I walked off. And I literally walked back, jumped in my car, turned my phone off, went AWOL.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. I went down to South Bank and went to a gun shop and, But I tried to go, I was going from I was doctor hopping. And I ended up at the end of the day and going to like the Vietnam Veterans Counselling Service, an RSL thing, and I ended up going to the 6 RAR doctor. And he rang up the doctor at 2:14. He's like, why is one of your digs here? Like he's been wandering around all day. No one will help him. Like what the fuck is going on? Yeah, and like that one there, when I say I didn't have good leadership, our Squadron Sergeant Major, Obi, he was awesome. Like he understood it, he got it, and he rang me up and he's like, mate, I could charge you for AWOL, but I'm not going to because you're better than that. I understand it. Just sort your shit out, come back to work tomorrow and we'll square it away. And, but yeah, I mean, the funny part about that whole scenario was when I discharged a couple of months later, you got like the power dynamic where, like I said before, a sergeant's sitting at a lieutenant's desk and you don't talk about that sort of stuff. So I've walked into Obi's office to say goodbye. I'm like, sir, thank you for your time. Appreciate what you did for me. And he like stops and he looks around and he like, checks over his shoulders and he goes, mate, that day you told the two eyes to go fuck himself? I was like, yeah. He's like, that was pretty cool. And he goes, do you know what you did to him? And I'm like, no, I pissed him off. And he goes, no, mate. He goes, so Obi's office was across the hall from the two ice's office. And he goes, I'm sitting in my office typing away on the computer doing something. And he goes, I just hear the door slamming and "Great Corporal, man." He's like full on ranting coming down the halls and the ranting gets louder and louder and louder and Captain gets into his office and he shouts to Julio the clerk. He's like, get me bloody Corporal May's phone number from the recall. And he's like in his office pacing and he's fuming. And anyway, a bit of paper comes in and there's his phone number. And he goes, Captain picks up his phone. He like search and destroy, dials the bloody phone. And he goes, I'm just sitting there not knowing what's happening, like watching this dude just implode. And he just stops and he grabs the phone and starts. She goes, you fucking piece of shit. And he's like smashing it on the desk. And then he like search and destroys. And then he's like, you fucking. He's like screaming at his phone. And Obi's like gets up. He's like, I better go do something. So he knocks on the door and he's like, do you want me to try and call him, sir? Like he might, if I call him from, mobile or something, he might answer. And he goes, you didn't answer. I said, yeah, I know. I had my phone turned off. And he goes, do you know what your voicemail message is? I was like, oh, no, I can't remember. He goes, I would have recorded that years ago. Whatever. And he goes, I rang your number. And it just rings and it goes, it's you going, yeah, whatever. And he goes, so this captain is losing his mind because he thought that you were answering the phone going, whatever. I was like, oh, well, that's one little payback I got on him, I suppose.
Oh, fuck. Is he still in this, dude?
Mate, I wouldn't know.
I'll have to remove his name so I don't get defamatory. Defamation case.
Captain X.
If you're wondering why there's all these fucking gaps in the conversation, it was that dude's name. Yeah,
Captain X. Yeah. But I mean, and that's the sad thing is like the army could have been a good job. And I like a lot of my mates got posted to the 3-4 Cav after that, and they were like, dude, you should have come to 3 because I got posted out when I discharged. And they're like, you should have come to 3-4 Cav. And I was just like, I was just done.
It was over, yeah.
Like the the sheen had gone. You know, I mean, I ended up going to Vicpol and becoming a copper for a bit.
All right. You did your med D or did you voluntary?
No, well, yeah, it was a voluntary discharge, and even that, like, you know, you look back on it. So I got out, and I was a copper for 3 years with Vicpol, and I had to resign for family reasons. So basically, the way Vicpol works is you do your probation, and then once you're confirmed as a constable, they put you in a lottery, and they draw your name out of a hat. And if your name comes out of the hat, it's all the postings they can't fill. Anyway, pardon me. Anyway, my name, out of the 60 people that were in this lottery, there was one spot in a place called Warwicknabeal, which as a single bloke would have been a great country posting, cattle rustling, meth trafficking area, but it was rural. It was rural as. But I had a wife. She had a physio business. We had a house. We're trying to have kids, you know. So my name come out, and I put in a redress of grievance, basically saying, "Hey, I can't move. You know, can I stay at Cranbourne?" Because that was, you know, one of the busiest stations in the state. And basically, Vicpol hierarchy, and again, getting back to that power dynamic thing, my subcharge of the station, Senior Sergeant Horsecroft, calls me into his office because he was advocating for me. He's like, "Mate, this is the email I just got from the superintendent." And it literally said, "Constable mate can do as he's told or resign." I was like, and literally there and then I was like, "Okay, boss, no worries. Like, I've played this game before. It was just in a green uniform. There you go." But, you know, like, as a copper, I think that masked a lot of the PTSD, mental health symptomology that I had.
Yeah.
I love being a copper. I would go back to being a copper in a heartbeat. I loved it. It was one of those things I was just naturally good at it. But the hypervigilance made me even better at it. You know, like I would work with dudes that were gunning for spots in the CI and that sort of stuff. And they're like, "Sweet, I've got a shift with you because you were always finding drugs." You know, the way it would work generally is you'd start a shift on the van. You would get called to a domestic violence thing, and that's the rest of your shift gone, dealing with arguing wives and husbands. And whereas my MO was get to work, get your kit, get in the van before you clock on with the comms and go and just tip cars. And sure enough, within half an hour, you'd find drugs, which then led on to warrants and all this sort of stuff. So, you know, like I genuinely enjoyed it. But also it, like I said, masked so many problems. And it wasn't until I got out of the coppers, I had a 4-wheel drive workshop. I worked for ARB for a bit, and then I had a 4-wheel drive workshop. And then we sold all our businesses, moved to Toowoomba, and that's when I had my big meltdown. And that's when I went and got the advocacy sorted out. And it wasn't until I got a record of my med docs, and it kind of pissed me off when I saw it. My post-deployment screen from Iraq literally says, in, you know, like a big A4 notepad written thing, "Displaying symptoms of PTSD but appears to be okay." And it's just like, you could have told me that in 2007.
Yeah,
and that would have
talk to somebody about this.
Yeah, and you know, and then through that I got medically discharged and retrospectively discharged and all that sort of jazz. So
yeah. So when you moved to Toowoomba, is that like everything sort of calmed down and you went quiet and then gave you some time to reflect, and that's where it all came back? Or
yeah, I think I was just so busy, you know, like I got out of the army, I joined Victoria Police, and even that, my career was kind of flourishing. Like we had a tasking unit that we set up in the station, and I was the only constable on it. The rest were all senior connies, and you know, I was really kicking goals with Vicpol. At the same time, you know, when I wasn't at work, I was the receptionist at my wife's physio clinic. We built that, like literally, you know, built the entire clinic. We rented an empty space and built that all up from nothing. You know, when we ended up selling everything, there was 3 satellite clinics, you know, and then I ended up working for ARB, and whilst I was there, I was sort of like the assistant manager, and I started Young Veterans with my brother. So we had that going on. Plus, I was involved with the RSL, and then ended up buying my own workshop. So, and I think that too. One of the reasons I bought it was because it was a failing workshop. So the challenge of getting it up and running, and long nights, and again masked a lot of symptomology. And it wasn't until it would have been Anzac Day, 2017, 2018, I think. Yeah, something like that. My little brother and a mate, Anzac Day, had a few beers late at night, had a big Barney, which ended up bloody police getting involved, and that highlighted a lot of the stuff, which prompted me and my wife to move back to Toowoomba because that's where her family are from.
Yeah.
It was very much the slowing down. I got a job at the council as a parking inspector of all things. and that too was sweet. We're kind of like financially doing pretty well, so I can just get a job, thumb in bum, mind in neutral. Oh, cool, parking inspector. I get to walk around outside all day, stay fit.
Giving people tickets.
Yeah, and even that, when I started, the first week I had to shadow one of the other inspectors, and they'd get back into the office and they'd be like, "Oh, gave out 13 tickets today. Oh, that was a big day." And there wasn't like any kind of KPIs or targets or revenue goals. And I would get to work. I'd be out the door at 9 o'clock when the paid parking starts, and the first day I was out on my own, I walked back in and they're like, "Gave out 10 tickets today. Well, how many did you do, Scott?" And I was like, 180. And the boss walks out of his office and he goes, "Oh, we're probably going to have to go through a lot of them and they're probably issued in error." I was like, "I know how to give out a friggin' parking ticket." I said, "All I did was walk across the street down near the hospital where it's all paid parking and not a single car had paid for parking." Because habitually they knew that the parking inspectors never went there. And then the next day I went out and I walked back in at like 2 o'clock and they're like, "What are you doing?" Why? I'm like, "Oh, my machine's timed out. It won't issue more tickets." "Oh, you're only allowed to issue 250 a day." I was like, "Well, I've issued 250 tickets then." They're like, "Where are you going to do this?" I was like, "Literally walking across the road." Like, I'm not being a prick. Like, I'm not walking out going, "Oh, 2 seconds over." It's just, there are literally swathes of streets in Toowoomba where it's paid parking, but nobody pays it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going there. It got to the point where the local paper did an article on it. "New parking inspectors cracking down." And I'm like, no, that's just me. Like,
Just me doing my job.
yeah. And like, I even gave my brother-in-law a ticket and he's like, "Did you have to?" I'm like, "Yeah, mate, you were parked illegally." He goes, "Mate." And he goes, "But I always park there." I was like, "John, you work in that office for 15 years. How many fines have you got?" "Oh, that's the first one." I said, "So you can afford the $30 fine." Like, look at it like a reverse tax lotto ticket.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's and that all come about, ironically. I've never felt more vulnerable than being a parking inspector in Toowoomba. It's mental. Like,
Worried you're going to get stabbed or something.
100%. Yeah. Like, I was, and like, even their processes, like, they had this little tablet thing you use, and it's, what do they call it? Clocking valve stems. So they'd walk up to a car, take a photo of the wheel, and then this little overlay, and the valve stems at 6 o'clock. Then they'd come back in an hour and they'd get the app out, and then they'd take another photo, and then the app would go like, "The valve stem's still at 6 o'clock, so the car hasn't moved."
Oh, yeah.
And it would take them 10 minutes to do this, whereas I'd walk with a bit of chalk and go,
Oh, yeah.
And I was doing that, and I've put this chalk mark on a guy's tyre, and this guy bursts out of a bloody mechanics workshop, and he's like, "Yeah, fucking asshole, you do that to my car, I'll bash your head in." And I kind of turned around and went, "Is this your car?" He's like, "Well, no, but if it is, I would bash your head in." I was like, "For putting a chalk mark on your tyre?" Like, "Okay, mate, no worries." And I walked into the workshop and I was like, "What's your name, phone number?" Because it's actually an offence to harass and assault a parking inspector, And I've gone back to the office and I've walked into the boss. I'm like, "Hey, this bloke here, this workshop, this time and date, here's the witnesses. You need to send this to the police so they can look at it because what he did was not okay." "Oh, no, we don't do that here." I was like, he full on like came out swinging, And your solution to that is ignore it. Yeah, and that day I literally walked off and like I had a full-on meltdown. I'm like, I can't do this. Like,
Yeah, right.
I ended up sitting outside of all things, the Soldiers Hall in the main street of Toowoomba, and just sat on the park bench and just full-on melted down. And even that, the RSL in Toowoomba knocking on the door and no one's there because the building's abandoned. And it wasn't until I sort of like slowed down that everything smashes into the back ear.
Yeah.
No lube or nothing. Like
That's a good analogy. So what did you do? Started seeing sights?
So what did I do? It was actually around Christmas. It was literally within a couple of days of Christmas. And I didn't know what to do. So I just went to the DVA portal and put in a claim for PTSD. I was like, I don't know, and I just started typing. And to their credit, like everyone slags off DVA, but to their credit, I did an online self-serve form through their portal, and within 10 hours, I had someone from DVA call me up. Are you okay?
Oh, really?
Here's a list of people you can see. Let's get your in-cap payments started so financially you're not out of pocket. Go see a doctor. Go do this. Go do that. Like it was, from a financial standpoint, I was not left like, I don't have a job anymore. What am I going to do? It was like, cool, yep, no dramas. Let's just get this done. And then even that, like they put me in I got in touch with an emergency psychiatrist a week later. Like DVA,
That's awesome,
they pulled the trigger really quick.
Yeah, I think that flags if you put any mental health stuff into the system.
Yeah.
Which is good.
But yeah, I mean, and from that, I kind of sort of focused on getting myself sorted. But I actually, I joined the RSL and got a bit more involved with the RSL in Toowoomba, because of what happened, sitting out the front and no one there. But also I wanted to show my boys that Dad still gets up, still goes to work. As much as that they didn't understand it was a volunteer position, I was still getting up, going to school, dropping them off, going to work, coming home at the end of the day. There was a routine and a pattern of life that this is what you do. And as a dad, you want to be a role model for your kids and show them what hard work looks like. So, I ended up getting involved with the RSL and ended up becoming the president of the Toowoomba sub-branch. And then I was on the district board as well. I was the vice president of the district, and basically we were one of the fastest growing sub-branches in the state. Heap of young blokes joining. We had a drone program where you could basically sign out a drone. The RSL had its own drone license, so blokes could literally come in, sign out a DJI drone, and then go and do paid work for it under our license as a form of income for them. So we set all that up. We had metal detectors. We had a tool library. We bought a race car, so that budget endurance stuff I was talking about. Which was a bit of a flow-on effect from something we did with young veterans in Melbourne with an old ex-Army Land Rover. And we would do workshop nights. So every Thursday, guys would come to the workshop and work on this little Ford Laser that we had. And it was really good, and it was growing. And, we took Anzac Day. So Anzac Day in Toowoomba, traditionally, it was pretty lame. They'd do the dawn service. They'd have the women's choir from the CWA sing some hymns, and that was kind of it. So we kind of re-envisaged all that. The first one was actually when COVID restrictions were on. So basically that's when I first got on the committee. We sat down there and the president at the time was like, well, Anzac Day's cancelled. We can't do Anzac Day this year. And that was it. So I sort of was pre-prepared. I'm like, actually, no, here's what we're going to do. We're still going to, how the RSL Queensland had that light up the dawn in your driveway? So we started that before they did it.
Oh, true.
So we started building flagpoles, and we were installing flagpoles free of charge in veterans' front yards so they could hold their own dawn service.
Oh, nice.
And we ended up installing over 250 flagpoles.
Really?
Yeah, across Toowoomba, and we even come down to Brisbane and did a few, did one out of Miles.
So there's hundreds of Aussie flags up in Toowoomba?
Yeah, yep. Like literally you'd be driving around, but yep, I put that one up. Like you know. Yeah, and then we had like an alternate service plan if restrictions were eased. But that particular year when they was like, no, COVID's a thing, no one's going out, we actually had a bootleg, what do they call it, speakeasy at the RSL. So I had a key, so we put it just word out through the veteran community, and there's probably about a dozen of us that all snuck out and went to the Soldiers Hall in the middle of Toowoomba. And we ended the day by sitting on the roof of this 120-year-old building, literally with beers, watching the sun go down, yelling at cars as they drove past. Like, it was cool. But yeah, then like the following year, we ended up hiring out the goods shed in Toowoomba, which was this massive old railway depot. Like it's a good 200, 300 metres long, this building, and they just restored it. And we hosted this massive, big gunfire breakfast. I think 500 people came or something like that. But we had what we called it the biggest two-up ring in Australia, and it was like 50 metres wide. It took 4 people to run it. And it became this institution straight away. You know, the following year we hosted 700 people, and the following year we had people coming up from Brisbane. They're like, we heard about this giant two-up ring and these guys that are running it. It's like, and the backdrop, you know, think about 100-year-old timber railway kind of building, and the backdrop was these old army jeeps and the military vehicle club from Toowoomba.
Oh, no.
And then we had the local brewery there serving beers right next to the two-up ring, and, you know, families and kids were coming in and playing two-up, and it was cool. Like, it was genuinely cool. And then like we just sort of at the RSL, we went from strength to strength, and then this same standard story that you hear about RSLs is the good old boys dig their heels in and they treat the younger blokes like shit, and then we all
disbanded.
Yeah, got jack of it. You know, like the race car we had, I went to we funded that through the sub-branch for the first 3 years. So we applied for some grants external to the veteran community. You know, and that was purchasing the safety gear, the car. We had like 25 tyres. We ran it for 3 years at no cost to the people coming. It's literally like, you want to come race, you have to pay your way by working on the car on the Thursday nights, and then you can come race. You know, you don't have to pay for anything. And the cars, it's just grandma's laser. So you don't, you know, you're not going to get in it and spin it into a wall because it's some 1,000 horsepower weapon. But when we went to RSL Queensland for, you know, hey, can we get a bit more funding for this? Here's the evidence that it works. No, we don't think veterans should be doing adrenaline sports. And it's just like, oh, like, you serious? It's, you know, we're asking for 10 grand because we've got all of the stuff. We just need 10 grand to basically pay for consumables for a year. Yeah. Entry fees were discounted by the motor events guys. Like, this is a no-brainer. And they're like, no, it's, you know. And the only thing for our insurance point of view was you had to be an RSL member, doesn't matter what sub-branch, for public liability reasons in the pits. Yeah. And it's just like, how is this a bad thing? Like, but yeah.
They are very risk adverse, that's for sure.
Oh, it's, I mean, and the sad part too is I kind of like turned around, told RSL to shove it. You know, because Western districts, so, you know, you I don't know if you know the structure of RSL, but you've got your sub-branch, and then each sub-branch is in a district, and then you've got the state of Queensland, so there's 11 districts or something, I don't know. But the people at Western districts that were running it were just incompetent and inept and would do it like, you know, and I don't say this as like this is me having a dip at them, but they got a new treasurer voted in, and he was, what was he, ex-Air Force, and he was in charge of the 7 stores depot, like the accountant there. So in charge of millions and millions of dollars of equipment and assets and finances. And he lasted a month because he looked at their books and he's like, these are illegal. This is all illegal. I don't want anything to do with this. And I started calling all that sort of stuff out, and I was just being a shit stirrer.
Seems like a common trait.
You know, I'm like, hey, you like little things like you can't have an RSL meeting for the district presidents and then put a tab on the bar, because that's, like, fair enough, hey, have a drink, but going and getting your guts full of beer on the RSL is not what it's for.
It's not what the funding's for. Eh?
Yeah, so I ended up basically just sort of walking away from RSL, and just had enough of the veteran community. This is all at the same time, ANZMI. And like I said before, me and my younger brother started Young Veterans in Melbourne, and then the people, we stepped back for a couple of other blokes to kind of step into the role to keep it running. And to their credit, they kind of took it to the next level. But, it went from being a grassroots, we'd go out full driving and camping, and, to give you context, Young Veterans started because I went to the Dandenong RSL and was like, hey, I really like forward driving and camping, and I find that really good for me. I reckon we should take veterans forward driving and camping. Here's my idea. Let's buy 3 ex-Army Land Rovers and go forward driving and camping. And the president of the RSL was like, there's 30 grand, go do it.
Oh, well.
And that's how it started. We ended up turning one of those Land Rovers into a race car, Project Parenti, and we raced that at Broken Hill in the Outback Challenge. And, there's a lot of symbology in that, in like taking something that Defence had been deemed past its serviceable life and repurposing it and all this sort of stuff. But yeah, like just the veteran, like I said before, the veteran community, it can just be super toxic.
Yeah.
If the race car, for instance, people would get upset because they came all the way from, Ipswich to Willowbank Raceway, which is 15 minutes down the road, and they waited around for 3 hours and the car broke down and they didn't get their drive. It's like, okay, mate, but you didn't come and work on that. You spent, like, you've cost nothing, lost nothing. Like, you spent the day at the track. Like, Young Veterans was the same. You'd do stuff and people would whinge that,
Yeah, it's not enough.
Oh, it was mental.
I think that's the problem with DVA as well. You're mentioning people bag it. It's not so much that it's that they're not doing anything. It's the fact that they're not doing enough for some people. Oh, yeah, they gave me 50 grand, but it wasn't 100.
Yeah, I've had this discussion a lot. What people seem to forget or fail to understand is that DVA is a bureaucracy. And there has to be accountability in a bureaucracy. Because if you've got a pot of $100 and some bloke rocks up and goes, oh, I hurt my fingy, so I need $50. And they're like, well, hang on, but there's 10 other guys that have also hurt their fingies. We need to make sure everyone gets – so we need to assess them all to make sure you legitimately have hurt your fingy. And like people, they get the shits up when it's just not, oh, let me just open the till and there you go.
Yeah.
And like I've spoken to people in the past that genuinely did not want to go to DVA because they didn't want to be associated with being a malingerer, because they had this stereotype in their head. And this particular fella, again, ironically, we were working on his car, putting suspension in it. And I've turned around, I was like, mate, you were with 2 Commando. You literally, some of the stories you tell me about what you were doing, you need to go to DVA, not to get money, to get this written down that you've had all these injuries and illnesses, so that if something happens down the track, you can just get it covered. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
And it really took me like a fair bit of convincing for him to do it. And then he rang me up 6 months later. He's like, mate, did it. Thanks. Like, and even as the president of the RSL, I had people, I remember this one guy rang me up one day and he's like, oh, mate, yeah, I'm a veteran. Do you reckon you can help me out? And I was like, yeah, okay, what do you need? Oh, I need some advocacy. And oh, yeah, we don't have an advocate, but I can help you. But let's get the ball rolling. And I said, look, have you got your non-liability health cover sorted through the online portal? Have you got your med docs? And he's like, no. I said, look, do that first. And in the meantime, I'll book an appointment for you with the advocates. They're 6 weeks out, but get all your ducks in a row so that when you get there and they say, where's your med docs? You go, there. Where's this? There. Where's that? And I said, alphabetize it, go through injuries, dates. I said, collate everything. And he dead set turns around and he goes, oh, but can't you do that for me? Because I just want the money. It's like, you know, and
it's a bit of the victim mentality sort of stuff going on.
Yeah. And I think part of it too, though, is particularly with my generation, is you had blokes, 18, 20-year-olds joining the army, and particularly in Cav, deploying pretty quickly and getting 70 grand. And they're coming back like, ooh, 70 grand. And 6 months later, they're broke because they went and bought a new Marloo ute and wrapped it around a tree and took some Thai girl to bloody Bangkok for the weekend. But then a couple of months after that, they're on another trip. And, oh, sweet, it's another 70 grand.
They're used to it.
And they're used to that big income injection. And then they get out and they go, I'll go to DVA and I'll get my claims all sorted. And then DVA turn around and go, here's 100 grand. Like, sweet, cool. And then they go out and buy a brand new Land Cruiser and caravan, and then they're broke again. And then they've sold that. And like the amount of guys I've met that are skinned. And it's like, what did you do with all your money that you got given? Oh, no, I spent it on what? Oh, the new car and the motorbike and this and that and the holiday. And it's like, mate, you know, the whole idea of that money is that you take it and you buy a house with it. You pay off your mortgage, or you pay a fair chunk off your mortgage. You make yourself debt-free so that when you have a meltdown again and you're in hospital for 6 months, whatever it is, or you can't work or whatever, you're not stressing out about money because your mortgage is covered, or you don't have car payments. You know, like that's what it's for. It's not so that you can go out and get it
away.
Yeah, and it's sad that people sit there and they'll slag off DVA really quickly, but it's like at the same time, mate, you should have had that payment and done something smart with it.
Yeah, 100%.
You know,
it's the same. There's the flip side of it as well. It's like, you know, all of this happened in the army. DVA owes me, and you get that whole victim mentality. It's like if you go work in the mines or fucking go work at Coles or whatever, and you get injuries fucking pile up because you're stacking shelves over your head or whatever, you're not going to get looked after. You're not going to get enough money to buy a house and get your healthcare covered for forever, and then pass that on to your fucking wife when you die. She'll also get her life covered forever with a widow's pension. But everyone just damns them and slams them. But at the end of the day, they are doing a fucking amazing job and helping out the veteran community.
It's such a funny thing. Like I rang up DVA there one day. I was like, "G'day, how you going? You asked me for this paperwork. I'm just submitting it. I just want to make sure that you got it." And she's like, "Hang on a tick, let me have a look." And you can hear her typing away. "Oh yeah, no, we received that last week. Yep, no worries. Okay. Yep, you're in the queue." I'm like, "Okay, no worries, thank you." And she stops and goes, "Is there anything else?" I was like, No, all good. I just wanted to make sure you got that paperwork. And she goes, "Oh, okay, no, that's not normally how these conversations go." And I sort of stopped and I was like, "Why? What do you mean? Like, were you expecting me to lose my shit at you?" And she's like, she goes, "Well, yeah."
What?
And I've since then spoken to people that used to work for DVA, and their attrition rate for staff is shocking.
Oh yeah,
their turnover is absolutely shocking, and
they probably pay them a fair bit too.
Well, and this is what I've said to a lot of blokes. You know, like we'd have in Toowoomba like a veterans coffee once a week, and you know you'd get the odd bloke, "Oh, bloody DVA, it's really taking too long." And I turn around and this one fella was saying how he rang him up and he gave him a mouthful and all this sort of stuff. And I was like, how would you like it if you're working in a job on 80 grand a year, 90 grand, whatever it is, answering phones, and all day you're getting some cockhead that's entitled because he hurt his knee when he was at Kapuka and he heard a gunshot go off without earmuffs in, so he wants his tinnitus claim sorted out. And he's screaming at you because he wants his $200,000 compensation payment that he's entitled to. And you then have to process that paperwork for him. And then you hang up the phone, and then the next bloke that you answer the phone is the same thing. I said, do you understand how demoralizing that would be? Like, imagine some 21-year-old girl that's, "I'm helping the veterans," and all the veterans do is ring up and...
I was going to say that. They probably take that job because they want to help the veteran community and
Yeah. You know, and it's like, imagine, and I when I got my email from ComSuper saying, hey, you've got a Class A pension. Just happened to be coincidentally that I was at my house and Mum and Dad were over and some old family friends from Melbourne were down. And I'm sitting there and my phone went off and ding, and I've like read the, I'm like, oh, look at that. I said, I'm officially retired. And anyway, Dad's mate, B2, he starts, oh, bloody veterans don't get anything in this country. And it's about time one of them gets looked after, and all that kind of tall poppy, spirit of the Anzac kind of stuff come out. And I turned around, I was like, well, actually, B2, like, veterans get a shitload in Australia. And he's like, what do you mean? I said, well, in America, you get out, you get vouchers to go to the VA hospital. So like 50% off your psych. I said, they get nothing. Whereas in Australia, like you fill out a form and you get a white card, you know, for things you injured in defence. And medically all of those things are covered. But then also you get compensation for that. And I said, it's not hard to get. I said, but then on top of that, you get people come out to mow your lawn and like
clean your house.
Yeah, like I said, I've got all that. I don't want it, but DVA said if you don't take it, you don't get it when you need it. And I'm like, okay, you know, it's got, my father-in-law's a farmer, and a while back there was some flood payment thing for him, and the government said if you don't take this now, you don't get tax rebates down the track. Same deal. Like I'm like, hey, I'm pretty right. I can mow my own lawn. No, if you don't do this, then you lose all these other things. And it's like, okay, cool. So once every fortnight, a dude comes and whippersnips my edges, you know. And it's just sort of like I sort of spelt it out to B2, and you know, like with the gold card, I've got a gold card. I was out in the shed grinding some metal the other day, and I wasn't wearing safety glasses, and it went in my eye. So I go to the private hospital in Toowoomba and go, hey, how you going? I need to get this out of my eye. And the doctor's like, just give us your credit card there. I'm like, here's my gold card. And next minute, you know, you're in the presidential suite getting a foot rub, you know. And it's the only emergency department I've ever been to where they say, come back tomorrow for a checkup. You know, like people don't understand the value in that little yellow piece of plastic.
Oh, it's huge.
You know.
It's huge.
Registration discounts. I
was going to say the rego as well, like all the different things. You get electricity discounts, rego discounts, and the rego discounts like fucking 50% off.
It's huge.
Yeah.
It's such a, you know, and having had physio clinics dealing with the paperwork for people that have got work cover claims in. And I remember one of the patients come in one day and he's like, oh, my work cover claim for my shoulder's all sorted. It's only taken 10 years. Oh, yeah, mate. And he goes, yeah, I got 80 grand from. It's like, wow, cool. That's it. 80 grand, pack your bags, piss off. All of the bills that you've had piling up over those years, you've not been able to work. Like, yeah, cool. Sick, 80 grand.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was saying before about working for other people.
Yeah. I honestly don't think.
Well, there's a lot of the people get in at 17. They don't know what the real world is. They don't know. They think that, like, you know, this is just normal when it's not fucking normal. The rest, if you've had like, you know, if you get in at 25, you've had a good 6 years of working regular jobs and realizing you don't get anything. You go in with a bit more maturity, or you spend a lot of time out before you even worry about getting all that sort of stuff. I got a mate, fucking 20 years, he never put a claim in, never got a white card, you know, barely even fucking mentions he's a veteran, but he was in Iraq. It's like, dude, your back has been fucking cooked since you left.
Yeah.
Go and get it fucking covered.
Yeah.
No, I don't want to be a burden. Fucking no, it's fucking look after yourself.
And that's the irony of it too, though, is that the people that don't want to be a burden are the ones that probably should be a burden.
Need it the most, yeah.
And then you meet these dudes that are like, I've full on have had a bloke say to me, I just lied. I just lied about everything. And I mean, he must have told some phenomenal stories because, I mean, a truckie that never, I'm not saying that this is belittling his service or whatever, but for context, a truckie that never deployed got TPI and all those payouts.
Yeah.
And it's like, what did you say to get that? Like, And he's the sort of dude that's like, oh, geez, I can't do that. My back's playing up. And then next minute, he's out in the garden with a pickaxe.
Yeah. I used to see that a lot.
It's
like, how's your back? I used to be an exercise physiologist. It's like, how's your back? Oh, fucking 10 out of 10. And then you fucking look out and he's deadlifting 140 kilos. You're like, come on, mate.
There was a bloke that I joined the army with, like literally at Russell Street, got on the bus with him. He's from Frankston. And he was just a sack. Just, like not a great soldier. But anyway, when the Manning came out for the RTF trip, he was on it because his surname starts with B. Right. But he had a cyst on his arse or hemorrhoids. He couldn't sit down. Right. As a driver of an ASLAV, sitting down's a pretty big part of your job. Anyway, and I remember 2 days later, the RTF troops come together and they've decided as a morale thing, we're going out for a function at the pub. And I was the duty driver that night. So I've gone down the lines and picked all the boys up and they're all a bit pissy and happy. And this particular bloke, he jumped in the front seat because he needed a comfy seat because he couldn't sit down. And we're driving out the Cherry Street lines there. And he's like, oh, can you just watch the bumps there, Maisie? I can't sit down. And I was like, looked at him. I was like, you're about to start training and then deploy as a driver, and you can't sit down, in a Tarago to go to Normandy. And anyway, I was angry because all my mates have been like, why aren't you on this trip? What did you do? So I'm pissed off that I'm sort of not with the lads. And I don't know if you remember Gallipoli Barracks. Before they did all the renos at the front gate, there were these behemoth speed bumps. Like there's two of them pretty close to one another and they were massive. Like a taxi would scrape going over them. So we're driving out of Cherry Street and this bloke's in the front. Oh, just watch the bumps there. It's like literally just a paved road and he's freaking out because of these bumps. And I hit this speed bump at Mark 10 in the Tarago. Like the boys in the back bounced up and hit the roof and they're they spilled their beers and stuff. And this bloke, I drove from Gallipoli Barracks to the Normandy like I was racing a car. Hit every pothole, clipped the gutter and to the point where he was nearly in tears when he got to hindsight it might be seen as bullying. But that same bloke, I didn't really have much to do with him. I got out of the army. I was finishing at the police academy. And he walks into the main foyer of the big common area at the police academy. I was like, what are you? He's come, g'day, Scott, how you going? I was like, a bit standoffish. What are you doing here? Oh, yeah, I got into the Vic Pop. I was like, last I heard, you were on workers' comp because you were roof tiling and hurt your back. Yeah, I am still. Like, how did you do the fitness test to get in if you need to do push-ups and sit-ups and a dead weight carry and all this sort of stuff? Oh, I just lied. And then it's just kind of like, fast forward, he was a shit copper. I was lodging a crook there one night at Frankston Police Station and I was working with a fella. He was an X3RA. I love working with him because, same mentality, we'd get all the jobs. So there was one dude that was belting people with hammers. So we're like, let's go hunt this guy. Anyway, we're lodging this crook and the two jailers, I'm chatting away and I was like, do you know such and such? And they've stopped and looked at me and they're like, oh, yeah, why? And I was like, don't worry, I think he's a cockhead. And, but yeah, same deal. Like he was, when there was good stuff to do, he was perfectly fine. But then all of a sudden he's like, oh, my back, on my knees. And,
yeah. That's literally the fucking definition of Linger.
Oh, yeah,
how it started.
Well, I mean, the funny story, I was chatting to these lads and they're like, you'll like this one. He didn't have a car, so he was catching the bus to work and his training sergeant's like, mate, you're always late for work. You need to stop being a kid and buy a car to get to work. So he's like, okay, no worries. So he goes out and he he buys this car from some single mum. And she's like, oh, I've just got to pick the kids up from school. Is it okay if I, we'll do the paperwork and you pay me now and then I'll drop the car to your place on the way home because, some agreement where she'd deliver the car. So he's like, yep, okay, no worries. And she has then taken the 10 grand and the car to the Melbourne Remand Centre, bailed her partner who's in there on remand, and then absconded in the car. So this bloke has funded a crook to get back on the street. But and then years later, I found out, same deal, as all of a sudden, all these injuries from when he was, tiling or whatever, are now to the point where he's on work cover again. And it's like, mate, fair shake of the sauce bottle. Like,
Yeah. Obviously, there's real injuries and then there's people just fucking taking advantage of the system.
Yeah. And
you have a system like this, there's gonna be people take advantage of it. Yeah. You can't avoid it.
And that's the hard part, is that, and again, like I said, the veteran community, that's one of the reasons with Real Steel Rescue where I've opened it up to everyone, is because I wanted to get away from those people that just like to sit around and the woe is me, I'm owed because of the blank check that I signed up to, including my life. It's like, yeah, mate, but there's people out there that have survived cancer and car accidents. And, as a copper, that was probably the one big thing that opened my eyes, is that you sit there and you're like, holy shit, there are people out there that genuinely just have horrible lives through no fault of their own. Whereas, defence is, like you said, it's a different life, but you should have the ability to sit back and be like, well, hang on a tick. Yeah, what happened to me was pretty ordinary, but there's a whole raft of people out there that, have had worse, a lot worse.
Yeah. I know plenty of people that, the majority, maybe it's people I fucking surround myself with, but, just super grateful for everything that DVA's done for them.
Yeah.
And the help that they get afterwards, which is good, There are legitimate injuries, and the fact that we get looked after so well is fantastic. But yeah, there's always, like I said, there's going to be people that take advantage, and there's going to be people that fucking whinge and bitch and moan. And
yep, that's like everything in life, really.
That's it. Well, what's your channel on YouTube?
So it's called Real Steel Rescue.
Like REAL Steel.
Yeah. Yep. So it's actually a bit of a social experiment. So I could have quite easily just started it as a YouTube channel and pocketed the cash if I made cash. But like I said, having through my working life and even as a kid, seen the positive impact that getting people out, camping, four-wheel driving, tinkering, work, it's more than just I've got a car, I drive it from A to B. I acknowledged well before we started it that there is a bit of merit to what we wanted to do. So we actually set it up as a registered charity straight from the get-go. So any money we make through sponsorship or monetization of social media platforms goes directly back into the charity aspect of what we do. And it's such an innocuous formula that I look at it as someone that has grown up tinkering and working on cars, where I'm like, whatever, like it's not that hard to get an old car going. Whereas I've had people come out with me and, like the very first episode we filmed, there was this old, it was a Toyota Crown in a paddock, to the point where it had sunk down in the dirt so much it was on the sills of the doors and the rims were half rusted away. Like this thing had no business. But we spent 5 hours and we got it running. And it just started the engine, and that's all we did, just got this engine running. And the bloke I was with was like, that was cool. Like I honestly didn't think we would get this thing running. Not only did we get the coffin, it ran, like you turn it on and it idles like it was put in yesterday. And it like I said, for me, it was like, yeah, whatever, we just got this old car going. It's air fuel spark. But there's so many people out there that never did that and never had that opportunity to. And it's something that I've probably taken for granted. Even this weekend just gone, some family friends came over for lunch, and I was talking to Nick, and he was like, mate, I love your channel. I just am engrossed in what you do because I never did that. And it's foreign to me to go out and go, there's a rusty old car in a paddock. Let's see if we can drive it. Like who does that? And I was like, yeah, but And that's the cool part is that's where you become a well-rounded person when you do random things. Like, I'm not saying like walk down the street and throw water bombs at people, but when you put yourself out there in the world and you have a dip at something, that's when you gain knowledge and experience and you grow as a human. And that's what allows you to move into the next stage of what you're doing. You know, like if I was to break down my life into a very stick linear kind of progression, you know, I was the number 3 of 4 sons to a carpenter and a stay-at-home mum, qualified plumber, finished my apprenticeship, joined the army, became a copper, had a business, like learnt on the fly how to run a business, and, you know, took that business from being a $600,000 a year turnover to a 1.2 million turnover in 18 months. You know, started a charity, didn't know how to do that. Sold the businesses, moved to Toowoomba, became a parking inspector. That's the highlight. Became the president of an RSL, got a scholarship to go and learn about board management, and then started a bloody YouTube channel. Like, and it's interesting because I talk to so many people, and they kind of go like, "Wow, you've done a lot in your life, haven't you?"
Yeah.
It's like, no, not really. I just think it's a case of I can't sit still.
Yeah.
You know, because if I then work it back, I don't have a career as such. You know, like policing was going to be my career, but that all kind of fell in a heap. But, you know, I sort of internally look at myself sometimes and go, oh yeah, I'm a bit of a nobody in terms of I don't have a diploma. You know, I enrolled in uni at the start of this year because I wanted to do teaching, and I lasted 3 weeks just because of the garbage that was in the module, is woke messaging.
Oh, really?
You know, and when I spoke to the first year dude about it, I was like, I can't sit there and write these essays about communism and he, she, critical thinking, genderism. Like, if this is 3, I said, I don't want to do it. You know, so I sort of like look at my, we'll call it paper qualifications are limited, but life experience wise, because I've always done something different. I worked at a school camp for 3 years, you know, like, and that was cool. Like, the only reason I don't work there anymore, I actually said to a mate, like, that was my Forrest Gump moment. You know, like, if my life was to be the same sort of like sequence of Forrest Gump, that's the end where I was mowing lawns. Like, I dead set, I got this job because I was through the RSL. So this place called Emu Gully down in Hallerton was set up by Vietnam veterans in the 90s, and all the activities are based on our military history. So it was and I ended up going there, and we ran Veterans Family Weekend. So you'd bring the kids along. It cost you nothing. It was all funded by the RSL, and we'd go and do all these activities. Like, you know, there was a Kokoda track where you had to carry a stretcher through the mud and, you know, all sorts of stuff. And I ended up getting a job there. And it was a great place to work. But management took over or changed. And, you know, by then I was the maintenance manager, you know, and my job was literally mowing the lawns, you know, and I built a new paintball field for them, and I would take year 12s out and run paintball and hang out with grade 6 kids telling funny stories. Like, it was just a great place. But then when the new bosses took over, it was jobs for the boys and politics, and there was safety concerns and all this sort of stuff that just got swept under the table. But you know, like, you keep moving forward in life, and you learn and you become well-rounded as a person. And then ever since starting the YouTube channel, I look back on what I've done, and I'm taking people out and going, yeah, man, we're going to get this old bucket of crap going and we're going to paint it. And they're like, yeah, man, this is going to be awesome. And it's genuinely for them stuff they would never do.
Yeah.
You know, we got that Suzuki Swift and took 4 people and built it into a race car, and we raced it. It only lasted 80 laps before it had a mechanical failure, but we fixed it with a leather strap, and they did 1 extra lap, and then the engine blew up because you shouldn't fix engines with a bit of leather belt. But I was freaking out because it was a 2-day event, 24-hour race, and we were out within the first 4 hours. And I was kind of like, oh, man, I've got all these people. One dude come up from Bathurst to do it. The rest were from Brisbane and Toowoomba and that. And I was like, oh, they've come all this way and they've only got half an hour in the car each and they're going to be annoyed at me and pissed off. And we did these like little interviews the next morning. I was like, well, we'll do this and then you can head off. You don't have to stay here all day. And they were overwhelmingly like, man, this is like a highlight of my life. I never got to think that I would be able to get into a little car on a racetrack and race it against other race cars. And they were like so humble about it and excited. And there was no like, oh, I'd gone out and bought $100 racing license and you guys didn't let me race. They were like, mate, for $100, I got half an hour, 45 minutes on my own without some dude sitting next to me throttling the car or controlling me. It was like you in the car on the track.
Yeah.
You know, and it's
super exciting.
Yeah, it's so cool that what I consider to just be, oh, yeah, this is what I do for fun.
Yeah.
That other people just look at it with this completely different
lens.
Yeah.
Life changing for them.
Yeah, and that's the idea of Real Steel Rescue is, you know, we got monetized in November, which was for a new channel pretty quick. It took us 3 months.
Yeah.
But, you know, we've got the little skyline that I found in a paddock there, and that's going to be a community build. So we're going to get people to come in and something as simple as, cool, today we're stripping the interior out so we can fix some rust. People are genuinely emailing me. I've had guys from Perth, Melbourne, Adelaide. They're like, mate, I would come up and work on this car with you. I love the concept of what you're doing. There should be more of it. And particularly in this current climate when affordability is becoming an issue, you know, I was literally talking about it with a mate on the way down. I grew up, like I said, travelling across the Simpson Desert, all by car. I've done Cape York, I've done the Victorian High Country so many times I can't remember. And I think the way that the country is going is that Great Australian Road Trip kind of thing is going to be less and less accessible for people. So if we can, through our YouTube channel, generate income where we can take people out to the racetrack and put them in a race car for half an hour, or get 3 old crappy 1990 Toyota Camrys and drive them to Birdsville and they don't have to pay for it, then, you know, that's the win.
Yeah, it's huge. Yeah.
You know, it's not about becoming you know, I've got no aspirations to be some kind of YouTuber extraordinaire. At the same time, I did make myself a 100 subscriber YouTube play button out of cardboard. So pretty impressive. But yeah, like the whole idea, and you know, we talked about people talk about clicktivism, you know, but I saw this petition online, so I signed it, or you know, this person put a post up saying if you don't agree with this, then click the thumbs down button. You know, very, very few and far between will you come across something on social media that you can actually help by clicking a button.
Yeah.
That's the idea. Like, we are a registered charity. You click the subscribe button, that generates income for us. The more people that do that, the more income we generate, the more people we can help. You know, and it's just this self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah.
You know, and yeah, it's such an interesting little experiment. And the other side to it, the other sort of flip side is that I think particularly with young men, having worked at the school camp, you talk to these, you know, year 12 kids and that sort of stuff. And, well, hell, I was being nostalgic one day and I saw an EL XR6 for sale in Toowoomba, a green one. And I used to have a red one when I was in the army. So I went and looked at it and the bloke selling it was like, mate, 15 grand, but if you take it now, I'll do it for 10. I was like, okay, there you go. There's 10 grand. Like, I just sold a car, so I had the money. And it was an impulse buy, nostalgic. And I drove this thing to work one day and I parked it, you know, in the school camp there. And I got out of it and I was just dithering about the workshop and all these year 12 kids were walking past and like, wow, check out the old vintage car. That's sick. And they full on came up and started like eyes on the windows, like, check it out. And I walked over and I was like, it's just a it's just an old Ford Falcon, boys. Like, yeah, but you don't see them anymore. And I got chatting to these boys, and they don't have the kind of, I don't know, we can call it role models, but like the wherewithal or the ability to go out and get an old banger for $500 and muck around it in the driveway with their mates. It's just not a done thing. And I think having, you know, some of the emails we've gotten and comments, that there's a lot of younger blokes out there that are looking for that positive, you know, experience, hands-on experience, but also the role model aspect of it.
Yeah, for sure.
And like, if we can get to the point, one of our goals is to open like a community workshop. I'd love to see them all across Australia. You know, a workshop where some young bloke who's just bought his first car can drive it in and we can teach him how to service it. There's a bunch of old dudes there that are retired or whatever that just want to tinker on cars and pass on that knowledge.
Yeah.
You know, and then that creates the social inclusion and all this sort of stuff, because it's so easy to sit there and look at stuff on Instagram and YouTube where it's unobtainable. You know, and I use Top Gear as an example. Like, great show, production quality is amazing. The three presenters like Clarkson, Hammond and May, or the Grand Tour, whatever they call it, you know, you can tell that they're genuine dudes and they're mates. But at the same time, you watch that and go, oh, wow, that would be cool to get a Lamborghini and drive it across Lithuania with my two mates. or turn a car into a boat. But it's just
not obtainable.
It's not obtainable, you know, and that's what I want to show with what we do with Real Steel Rescue is like, it is, you know, just because you're doing something cheap doesn't mean it has to be done poorly. You do everything to the best of your ability. You buy the best you can at the time. And for me personally, if I, you know, went to a car show and there's a pristine old Holden that's restored and then there's an old Falcon that's a bit rough, and old mate's like, yeah, this is a $100,000 resto I paid for. And the other dude's like, yeah, I did this myself. I would 100% spend time having a yarn with the fella that did it himself, because he's had a crack, but he's also put himself out there by entering it in a car show.
Yeah.
And I think we live in a society nowadays where people look at things and go, oh, that's not perfect, so it's garbage.
Yeah.
It's like, well, mate.
Glorify the most expensive, most refined thing.
And ironically, if I retrospectively look back on all the cars I've owned, some of the best fun I've had is in the cheapest, crappest cars. You know, like when I was in the army, we literally live just down the road from here. And both me and the bloke I live with had four-wheel drives. And we're like, let's see if we can get a little run around just to go to and from the barracks, just cheap on fuel. And we went down to Strathpine where they used to have all the old car yards. And we literally walked into this one. And I've walked up this. He's like, hey, mate, you're looking at a car, boys. I got this Commodore here and blah, blah. I said, I've turned around. I was like, cut the hard sell, mate. I got $500 cash. What have you got? And he kind of goes, oh, takes us over this old Holden Apollo, which was actually a Toyota Camry, but you got to make sure you differentiate the two. And he's like, mate, aircon in it's really good. Doesn't have a roadworthy. The turret's a bit faded, which we didn't know at the time, but the turret's the roof. But me and Luke being armoured core, like, it's not a turret. He's like, $500 cash, no reg, no roadworthy. Take it. I'm like, sold. Anyway, so I bought this thing, went and got a dodgy roadie for it, got 12 months rego. And the rules were you're only allowed to top up the fluids. You're not allowed to service it. So you can top up the water, the fuel, and the oil. That is it. Not allowed to wash it, nothing. And this car became like, you know, we drove home one night from the pub. Probably shouldn't have driven, but anyway. And we cut through the old paddocks up the back of Warner there. It was all being developed. And we were cane-toad hunting in this thing, literally driving through the paddocks, one of us sitting on the passenger windowsill with a golf club for some reason, and like drilling, you know. And then I remember we got to because it was like a dirt road that you could cut through. We got to the end and they'd bulldozed this big mound to stop people going in there to do that sort of stuff. And it was a big mound, like sitting in the car, it was above the roof. And I remember I'm driving and Luke's like, you won't drive over that. And I just sort of eyeballed him like, you're on, and just sent it into and it got to we got up it and it like teetered and then, rolled. We drove over it, trashed the car doing it. It ended up becoming like the car that the boys would borrow to go down the Gold Coast for the weekend, and then someone found a Nico in it one day and there's all this graffiti all over it. And, bloody Luke used it to go somewhere one night and come back and there's all this. I'm like, what is this stuff on the bonnet? And he's like, oh, we went to Macca's and got something to eat on the way home. And I was telling the boys, like, yeah, this is our burn around car. You're not allowed to wash it. That's the rules. Yes, so all the boys just dumped all their Sundays and Macca's food on the bonnet. And Luke's like, yeah. So he's driving back from Brizzy with all this fast food all over the car. And, just a cheap little banger we found for $500 and just like lifelong memories, fun.
Yeah. Kids aren't doing that anymore. They're buying fucking new Hiluxes and shit.
Well, and I mean, even that, like, so I've got a Jeep Gladiator, which, I'm at a state. I'm not a Jeep guy, by the way. Just premise that. I've always had Nissan Patrols, but the Jeep was cool when I was buying it. Anyway, and it's a great car, but it is an $80,000 top of the line Rubicon leather seats. It's bright blue. Like, it's this is too nice to get dirty car. And I've never, ever been like that. I've always said, like, whatever, the new car smell goes away. That's when you can get it dirty. I'm like, no, that's, I've had it for a few years and, I still use it as a ute, but I wouldn't go full driving in it as such.
Scratching it out.
Yeah. Anyway, I went out recently and bought an old 1989 petrol gas Nissan Patrol for something we're doing with Real Steel Rescue. We've got 30 cars donated to us that we need to extract out of a bush block. So we're going to sell them for parts or scrap as a way of raising money. And, I was like, the Jeep is too pretty to be pushing through thick scrub to drag these cars out. So I bought this Patrol and I spent the last couple of days pulling it down, tearing it apart because I'm going to just give it a quick slam door paint job. Mechanically needs a few bits and bobs. But my wife comes out and she's like, are you having fun? I was like, I am actually. And she's like, do you feel like you're 18 again? I'm like, I do actually. Like, this is good. Like, it's genuinely a car that I'm like, this is cheap and cheerful and it's going to be safe when I'm finished with it. There's a few rust repairs, but I'm literally leaving here to buy them on the way home. But at the same time, I know I'm going to have fun in this car. Like, I know that I'm going to go to a bush block and I'm going to be winching things and dragging them out and people are going to come along with it and I'll be like, yeah, cool, you can drive the car. And for some dude that's never done anything like that, that's going to be like, what? Like that kid in the pizza shop, I got to drive this dude's four-wheel drive and we were pushing down trees to drag this old burnt car out of the scrub with a winch. I've done that racing competitively, recreationally, like, like it's you don't need all the bells and whistles. And who cares if people looks at you and thinks you're a tool because you're driving this old, shit, I'm a 42-year-old dude with a YouTube channel. Like, who cares? Like, just have a crack, have fun.
Yeah.
That's
it. Well, head over there to Real Steel Rescue and give them a follow. Hit subscribe on my fucking page too. I've got way less subscribers than you.
Oh, that's why I'm here.
Just hit the button. I've said it before, but before I had a YouTube channel, I would never subscribe to anybody. I'm like, and the more they told you to subscribe, the more you wouldn't. You're like, fuck off, I'm not subscribing.
Yeah.
You don't realise how important it is.
It's a rabbit hole. I went down this rabbit hole when I first was like, let's do this as a concept. And I was like, ironically, there's a whole subculture of people with YouTube channels telling you how to build a YouTube channel, and they're all really successful YouTube channels.
Yeah.
And they all be like, yeah, and I built this, but look at me now. And it's like, because that's like...
So motivational speakers.
Yeah.
Telling you how to make money, but they're making money from...
Yeah, correct. And I ended up finding a TED Talk, which I do not watch. I hate them. But it was from the CEO of YouTube.
Oh, true.
And he literally goes, there's no secret formula. He goes, tell a story, tell it well, and be honest. And that's it. He goes, people want that human connection. They don't And like you said, every time it's like you hit the smash the subscribe button. And it's like, no.
Yeah. Especially at the start. Smash that like and subscribe. Don't forget. You're like,
Yeah.
well, no, I'm not gonna.
Yeah, exactly right. Yep. And then like just through the rabbit hole, I ended up joining a Facebook page for, new YouTube pages and this sort of stuff. And people are like, I don't know why I'm not getting followers. And it's like you've just gone to AI and typed in a heap of prompts and made dribble, or you're not telling a story. And we'll use the Australian automotive YouTube channels, for instance. There's two types. There's one where they're like, yeah, we're just a grassroots channel here. We're going to go out and buy a $60,000 Skyline and put a $10,000 ECU in it, sponsored by us, or the four-wheel drive one, same deal. It's like, well, we're going to go out to Cape York in this car that was given to us, and you need a $180,000 setup to do this trip. Or you got the other end of the scale where it's like some dude with a GoPro that's, and I don't mean this to belittle them, but it's like well-intended. I'm going to show you how to do the timing on an engine, but all they do is set the GoPro up and anyway, we're going to do this and you do that bolt, and it's like, cool, mate, just, someone that works on cars in my garage at home, I'll be like, cool, just skip through to the bit that I want.
Yeah, the bit that I need.
Just show me where the bolt is that I can't find. And that's where the idea of Real Steel Rescue is, make it a bit entertaining, have a good bit of production quality in it, not that I'm some kind of Steven Spielberg, but at the same time, just, try and make it a bit dynamic. And I mean, like even our recent episodes, which this is a cool thing about it, we started with no money. I sold 2 guns to buy a camera. That's it. But we've now generated enough income where we can pay for our public liability insurance, which we're negotiating to get access to the Mount Cotton Driver Training Centre. And what we want to do is, let's say, for instance, you've built a car in your shed at home. Like, sweet, you're going to come with us for the day and you're going to try and post your best time on the road circuit. So a subscriber will come along with a car that they have built and have a racetrack for themselves for an hour to do their best lap time. And then the next time we'll get another guy who might have, so long as you built that thing yourself, nobody cares what it is. So we've got all these things in the future that have just popped up because people have gotten in touch with us and they're like, I like what you're doing. This is cool. Yeah, the 30 cars we got donated, the dude's like, they're burnt. They're not worth anything. If you can scrap them, you can keep the money. And in that, he's like, turned around the other day and he goes, oh, mate, there's a heap of engines over there you can have. I don't want them anymore. He's got, his house is just cars everywhere. And then he's got a couple of old cars in the bush that someone's tried to turn one of them into a race car in the past. So I've always wanted to do this. I've always wanted to go to a wrecking yard with a welder and a grinder and build a junkyard race car. And he's sitting there going, yeah, you can have that, you can have that, you can have that, you can scrap all that. And I'm like, nah, mate, we're welding this thing together. And we're going to get people to come and help do that.
Frankenstein car.
Yeah, 100%. It'll be cool as hell. Probably dangerous as hell, but.
I look forward to that video.
Yeah.
Well, I better wrap it up.
Yeah.
Anything you need to promote while you're here coming up other than getting on the channel?
No, I've got an OnlyFans that we do feet stuff with, but probably not.
I'm not going to be looking at that soon. The petrol prices.
Yeah, got to pay for that unleaded somehow. No, it's thank you for having me on. It's actually genuinely just cool, just sitting down and just chatting about random stuff.
Yeah, it's good.
The conversation ducks and weaves all over the place. I hope you got something good out of it.
Yeah, no, for sure. I get that feedback a lot. They love this podcast because it's just feel like you're just having a chat with the boys. And even when people are putting it on in the TV in the background, and they just feel like they're just hanging out with the boys, having a yarn.
Yeah.
Not nothing, not trying to push and promote and fucking shove stuff down your throat. Just talking about life.
I would say probably this is just something that popped into my mind just then. We're coming up to Anzac Day. Is this episode going to be out before Anzac Day? You don't know.
Next Saturday, it will be out on Anzac Day.
On Anzac Day. If you're listening to this on Anzac Day, go up to a digger that's wearing some medals And don't ask him for a war story. Ask him for a funny story. Because I've done that in the past so many times, and what you will learn will just you'll have a good laugh, but you'll probably get a better insight into who that person is. You know, if you ask them for a funny story, you'll get something so totally left of field you wouldn't you wouldn't pick it.
Yeah. The not safe for work stories.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah. Expect to be offended.
Good tip. Cool, man. Thanks for coming.
No,
Appreciate
thanks,
it.
bro. It was good.
Nice meeting you.
Easy.
Cheers, guys. The Grey Man Podcast is a veteran-run platform dedicated to sharing authentic experiences from current and former service members. These stories are shared to foster connection, understanding, and support within the veteran community. Episodes may contain raw, emotionally charged content that some listeners may find distressing. Listener discretion is advised. The views and opinions expressed by guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect those of the Grey Man Podcast, its host, or affiliated partners. The Grey Man Podcast assumes no liability for any statements, opinions, or representations made by guests during interviews or discussions.